east, and then another band of showery rain will come in from the west as well. So, yeah, it will be a bit wetter on Sunday, but still, it won't rain all day. There'll be some brighter spells coming through. And, yes, the wind's still coming up from the south, so Sunday also looking very mild.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. The assisted dying bill is backed by MPs.
The Prime Minister was amongst those who supported the vote after what was a very emotional debate.
However, those opposed promised to redouble efforts to persuade MPs to change their minds as they move on to months of detailed scrutiny.
President Zelensky says he is willing to cede certain territories to Russia to end the war for the first time, in exchange for the protection of a NATO umbrella.
Penny Lancaster hits out at Greg Wallace, saying she's prepared to go to the appropriate authorities over his behaviour as the MasterChef host steps down following allegations of inappropriate sexual comments.
Today marks 150 years since the birth of Winston Churchill. We're going to be looking back at his life and what has made him one of Britain's most famous figures.
It's St Andrew's Day, and our reporter Tony Maguire will be in St Andrews, where the Scottish patron saint is being celebrated.
And as young people are apparently going out less and less, we're asking if Gen Z is the boring generation.
Good morning. He wasn't gone for long, but Ruud van Nistelrooy is back in football after he was announced as the new manager of Leicester City yesterday. Brighton last night made history by moving up to second in the Premier League. And in cricket, England close in on a first Test victory against New Zealand in Christchurch.
Hello there, good morning. It's going to be quite a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times. Mild though, and plenty of dry weather today. I'll be here with all the details.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I found the perfect Christmas present for people you don't like.
Go on. What are you looking at me for?
No, here we go. It's in the, but it's expensive. You've got to go to Selfridges, which is right posh.
Yeah.
And it's baubles of the royal family that are awful. They're awful.
Like a crown?
No, there's the King, Prince William.
I see. They are
Actual
the
baubles.
Ah.
So look at these. They're absolutely off. They're £40 each.
That's a bit much.
Each.
That's an expensive insult.
And they're just really. I mean, the one of the Queen is dreadful. Really dreadful. That's bottom left. That's meant to be Camilla. Queen Elizabeth above.
Yeah.
Then you've got Catherine. Then Princess Diana is in there.
In her sheep.
And that one's sold out, apparently.
Yeah, Prince William.
And then Prince William and the King, who looks about 12.
Yes, he does.
I mean, it's just, they're awful. And they're 40 nicker each.
Yeah. Can't see them going. But, except you say the Diana one is already
The Diana one's sold out. It's clearly, dare I say this, American tourists.
A right royal rip-off.
Yeah, but surely nobody British has bought one of those.
Who's made them?
I don't know.
Tacky, they say here.
It's awful. They're absolutely dreadful. So if you've got a lot of cash and you really don't like someone, buy some of those.
Yes, that's not anything I'll be wasting money on this year.
No, you're not doing a Christmas tree, are you?
No, I know. I'm having a controversial Christmas.
You are?
Because I'm not going to put up... You know, I usually would put up the lights and the tree and everything by now.
In October?
Yeah, and then keep it going till March. But, no, I bought one of those lighting things that you hang from the ceiling, and then various different strands come out in a Christmas tree shape.
Well, at least if you
and
do
I've said,
that...
that's it, I'm not doing any more.
But at least if you do that, you literally hang it up and plug it in, and that's your lot. No baubles, no tinsel.
No.
But why?
I don't know.
You're not be bothered. Fair enough.
I feel like going away for Christmas. I've heard older people, it's something that happens with age, you know. I've heard older people say this year after year, I won't do Christmas anymore, I'm not going to do Christmas.
What about dining out? What about dining out on Christmas Day?
Yeah, I think that may be next year.
Really? Did it once about 10 years ago, wasn't it?
I think you have to have booked by now, don't you, if you're going to dine out on Christmas Day?
I would never do it. I'd never dine out on Christmas Day.
Well, that's what I would have said, but now I'm considering it. You wait.
Yeah, maybe.
Old age and cynicism will catch up.
I'll tell you what does it for me, though, is the idea I'd feel really uncomfortable by the fact, the people working there, they'll be earning double time or whatever, but they still don't want to be there.
No, I know.
And I'd feel too guilty. Don't like it.
I don't know, I bet some like it.
Maybe.
But I don't know.
They'll be working there whether you turn up or not.
Well, yes,
yes,
but that's a weak excuse. It's a weak excuse.
I just wonder, anyone watching it right now, do you think that's something that does come with old age and cynicism? You just get fed up with. I love Christmas. I like what it's all about, really. I'd probably go to church or midnight mass or something special like that. But I've just spent so many years putting up the decorations that the boys hardly notice.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, you're trying to take them all down again and then figure out how to store them and where to store them. You just get a bit fed up with it after a
Well,
while.
I can understand that. I can understand that. Anyway, let us know what you think this morning. gbnews.com/yoursay. Just very briefly on that, Emma's just messaged in, we're having a curry on Christmas Day. Can't be bothered with all the fuss. Well, fair enough, if that's what you
absolutely.
fancy.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Anyway, look, let's move on to... well, it's a politics story, but it's also a story that really affects all of us, because assisted dying is one step closer to becoming legal in England and Wales after MPs backed the bill in a historic vote.
Yes, the vote followed 4.5 hours of debate, with 330 MPs voting in favour and 275 opposing it.
The Prime Minister was one of the people who did vote for the bill alongside the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves.
And the legislation would mean that terminally ill adults with 6 months left to live are able to request assistance to end their life.
Well, the Deputy Political Editor for the Mail on Sunday is Anna Mikhailova, and she joins us now. Good to see you this morning. This is a significant vote, but it's only the very beginning of the process, isn't it? And that's what's being really emphasised with all of this. It's not law, but at least they're going to take it to the next stage.
But it's a momentous step. And what was interesting was... because there was a period when it looked like it would be very close. There was actually a couple of weeks when people thought the bill might fall, because after it was published and MPs were not given much time to scrutinise it, there were quite a lot of problems with it. I mean, there are a lot of... The way it's been drafted has some already obvious problems. And it really did look like it was possibly going to fall down, because you had a lot of very, very senior people come out against it. Instead, it has gone through on a bigger margin than anyone thought, to be honest. It wasn't that close. So it is, I think, a decisive vote for it. But one of the things that happened was yesterday in the debate, you had MPs stand up and say, support this at second reading, even if you're not that comfortable with it, and then you can always vote it down at third reading. So the next time they come to vote, which will be at least no earlier than the spring. The problem with that is it's quite naive. In reality, when it's past this stage, it's going to be really, really hard for any MPs to vote against it, especially in the numbers that passed it.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, that, I mean, it was fascinating watching the debate because politics became very personal. And there were some brilliant speakers who told harrowing stories and made their points very, very well. But what was interesting in the way it eventually happened was that the two Secretaries of State who are going to have the most to do with it, that's the Health Secretary and the Justice Secretary, both opposed it.
Yes, and not only did they oppose it, in the run-up, they were very vocal against it. And Wes Streeting's intervention was particularly influential because he was basically saying, you know, you have to first fix the NHS, you have to first fix palliative care. I think what was interesting about the debate, and I was in the chamber for a lot of it, was, you're right, there were a lot of personal stories. There were really, really powerful speeches. I mean, some MPs were on the verge of tears, listening. It was hard not to shed a tear. And that was on both sides. The problem with that is a little bit that, yes, it makes for powerful speeches, but that's not really what they should be doing.
No,
At
I
this
agree.
stage,
I agree.
Yeah, the decision shouldn't be about the personal stories. I know that sounds a bit perverse, but there are very powerful personal stories on both sides. So it shouldn't... And a lot of it was about my mum, my sister, and then all my constituent that wrote to me. It actually should literally be about, I'm looking at this bill, these are the very technical issues, and are we going to be able to resolve them or not? And what are the actual implications
But
of...
that's the problem with all this.
asking how.
It becomes, and I thought yesterday, it's an emotive debate, when actually it shouldn't necessarily be an emotive debate. It's got to be much more clinical, hasn't it? Of literally going through the lines of legislation, saying, but this isn't going to protect people.
I think in society it is an emotive debate, and I think that is what... And, you know, I think to give them credit, MPs really They did do well. You could tell they wrestled with it. I was personally quite impressed with a few of the new MPs because that was the thing that made me very nervous, that it was coming to Parliament when a lot of these MPs, I mean, 300 are completely new.
And they're having to make a life or death decision, as it were, within just a few weeks of being in Parliament.
Ethical moment, and a lot of them don't even understand process. But actually, on that front, I thought some of them were really, really impressive. But I think, Stephen, as you say, it's just the issue of they should be making a kind of more a decision more on the boring facts, as you were, and it's to society to debate the emotional issue, because each of us has a relative or someone really close to us who's had a death.
I mean, just before we run out of time on this, I do think what is interesting in this is a private member's bill, and yet it went through unopposed that the committees could call witnesses, expert witnesses, which is unusual. It could well be debated in the Lords, which is unusual for a private member's bill. So actually this is going to be... And actually there could well be government amendments, because the government, if it went through, would have to adopt it. So there's a lot which is different about all of this compared to a normal private member's bill.
That's true, and I think it was pretty clear yesterday from the government response that the government will now pretty much seize control of the bill and its drafting. So, look, I think it will obviously be scrutinised, and I think a lot of it now depends on who is picked on the committee to do that, and if they're being responsible. Kim Leadbeater will pick people on both sides who really know their stuff, as opposed to the better speakers or the more high-profile people.
Yeah, OK. Anna, good to see you this one. We'll catch up a little bit later on. Thank you.
Fascinating. On this one, I always think it depends who you last spoke to.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't it?
Exactly.
Because it's such a difficult subject.
I mean, I generally have always thought people should have a choice, but I still don't know that I'm comfortable voting for it.
No.
Because of the caveats. It's about those people who are coerced into it. And
it's the slippery slope, isn't it, that we're all frightened
of. It's that
of.
argument, yeah.
OK, shall we move on? At 12 minutes past 6, it's time for the weather with Honor Chiswick.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times, but it is going to feel a lot milder, particularly compared to the chilly week that we've had. So quite a cloudy and grey start across much of the country, and it's probably going to be sticking like that through much of the day. The best of the sunshine just to the northeast of any hills, perhaps across Scotland or northern England. We're also going to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, this mainly across western areas, perhaps lingering across northern parts of Scotland too. And it's going to be quite blustery at times around coasts. But for many of us, a mild day on offer, highs of around 13 or 14 Celsius. So to finish the day on Saturday, we're going to continue to see fairly similar conditions. Still plenty of cloud across Scotland, perhaps some longer spells of rain across the Northern Isles, and still drips and jabs of rain and drizzle around hilly areas, still quite blustery around coasts too. Fairly cloudy across Northern Ireland with some longer spells of rain, this heavy at times just starting to creep into the west, and plenty of rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, southwest England. Driest of the weather across central and southeastern England, but still plenty of cloud here. And then through the course of the night, we'll see those longer spells of rain slowly creep their way eastwards across the country. This is going to be turning heavy at times, particularly to start off Sunday morning, and particularly in the west, and then moving across parts of Scotland with plenty of blustery showers behind. Once again, the driest of the weather across the very far southeast. And it's a very mild night on offer too. Some places not really dropping temperatures too much compared to what they were in the day. Now through into Sunday, once again, we'll continue to see that rain sweeping its way eastward. It's most likely that most of us will see some rain at some point on Sunday, and plenty of blustery showers across the far northwest of the country too, and still fairly breezy around coastal areas. But on the whole, it's going to be another mild day on offer, highs once again around 13 to 14 degrees. That's it from me then. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Just coming up to 6:15 now. In an interview last night, President Zelensky has suggested he's prepared to end the war in Ukraine in return for NATO membership even if Russia doesn't immediately return seized land.
Yes, his proposal would signal an end to Ukraine's attempts to win back by force those territories that have already been seized by Moscow.
Let's talk to Major Mike Shearer, former spokesperson for the British Army. Mike, good to see you this morning. It's encouraging that something is being said. It's just a little surprising, some of the language being used here, because it's everything that Zelensky has previously said he wouldn't do.
Yeah, I must admit, I was shocked to hear this morning. But I suspect that he is taking a much more strategic view of how this war may end going forward. It's much easier to give a definitive when it's not. So he can say yes right now, join NATO, play the long game, and then see what happens within the fullness of time.
He is, of course, saying all this in the context now that he knows that the next president of the United States is going to be Trump. And, of course, he doesn't quite know how Trump is going to... Well, I mean, there are rumours, obviously, and he will be being advised on Trump's position on continued support of Ukraine. So maybe he's just trying to be pragmatic.
Well, that's right. I think... and what you've said there is spot on. I think he's just taking a fairly pragmatic and strategic view of how it may well pan out. You give it a little bit away today and you take a lot back tomorrow. I mean, the honest truth is, who knows? But I suspect that what you've just intimated there is right. He's given them he's given the dog a bone, if you like, to see how we can stop it as it is, knowing fine well that if he gets himself into the NATO club, that and there's insurrection coming from within to Russia, that they may well be able to claw it back at a later time.
Well, may well, but this is, I mean, it would end up with another Crimea situation, wouldn't it, where Russia walks in and it never goes back, which does, in its own way, send a powerful message, doesn't it, to Moscow that actually they've succeeded to a degree.
And that also is right. I mean, this. I guess this has always been the issue with where we are right now, because, you know, from where I'm sat, I could argue that you do not wish to reward failure, and you would be rewarding failure if you were to say, OK, you can have the Donbass if you want, you can have the Crimea if you want, and we'll leave it there.
But he's made the condition, or at least that's the way he's terming it at the moment, that he wants a NATO umbrella or NATO membership. How realistic is that?
Well, I think it is wholly realistic. The problem is that no one ever speaks about is that any NATO country can veto the joining of any other country. Look at the difficulty that we had with the last two countries that joined, Finland and Sweden. And we had a NATO country, I've forgotten the name, it'll come to me in a sec, that said no for an age until they were given certain sanctions from NATO and the EU, really. So any NATO country can say no.
OK, look, Mike, we've got to leave it there. Really good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
Good morning.
Look, just on that assisted dying bill, I was just struck by this. We've been talking about the differing views, only because two views have come in on the system right next to each other. Andrew, morning Andrew, says, hello, anti-assisted death opponents. Have you ever watched a beloved aunt slowly dying? waking up with a sense of dread. Please allow humans to be granted the same love and compassion that we give to our much-cherished family pets. But right next to that on the system is David, who says, having seen many deaths, those who voted on assisted death will have blood on their hands. It's a very slippery slope situation. So two absolutely opposing views from people who've witnessed awful things, and that's the issue with this, isn't it?
It is. In fact, if I can reach it, this table is so big. There's a very interesting headline, front page of the Telegraph. Our nation's moral foundations have shifted. The state can now take a life.
Which is interesting. And also, in terms of Prue Leith, you know, British Bake Off, Prue Leith, she went on the media to talk about how she was in favour of assisted dying because of witnessing her brother's end of life. But her son, Danny Kruger, who's a Conservative MP, so, I mean, they've got the same experience with the same person, was someone who was very much against it and said Parliament can do better for terminally ill people other than a state suicide service. So that's a division within that family, and I'm sure there's lots of families who disagree on it. All right. Anyway, it's interesting. Keep your thoughts coming through gbnews.com/yoursay.
And do stay with us, because still to come, Penny Lancaster has said she is prepared to speak with authorities regarding her experience with Greg Wallace on Celebrity MasterChef. That is next.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
6:24. Now, Penny Lancaster has said she's prepared to speak to authorities regarding her experience with Greg Wallace on Celebrity MasterChef following his recent suspension from the BBC show amid claims of misconduct.
The newspaper The Sun also reports on new accusations of Greg Wallace groping 3 different women. The production company that makes the programme, called Banijay UK, says it's launching an external review with Greg Wallace fully cooperating during the investigation.
Well, he and his lawyers insist the claims are entirely false.
We're joined now by showbiz journalist Ellen Coughlin, who joins us right now. This is... you can sense this is a snowball that's just gathering more and more dust and grime and grit, as well as snow, isn't it? It's going to get worse and worse.
It is, and that's always the way with these cases, right? You kind of hear the startings of something and then it begins to snowball, and that's kind of what we're seeing here now. So this actually started last week. Originally, there was 13 people came forward about these sexual comments and allegations of misconduct over a 17-year period, quite a long period of time. But today, as you said, 3 new women now have come forward and they are saying that he has groped them. So a little step up from sexual comments. One of them is actually Emma Kennedy. She won MasterChef, and she said in 2012 she saw Greg allegedly grope a camera operator in front of her. She actually reported this at the time.
And that's 12 years ago.
12 years ago. So she reported it, and as far as we know, nothing has been done about that. And another woman also met him at the Ideal Home show a couple of years ago. She said that she bumped into him in the pub afterwards and he groped her bottom, allegedly. She also said that he made some lewd comments about being sexually aroused by her. And then another woman also who was a contestant on MasterChef, she said that he came up behind her while she was cooking and allegedly pushed his body against hers, and she moved away, and apparently his behaviour changed towards her because of that incident. So she wasn't happy about that either.
No, I mean, there are various questions over all of this. One is why nothing's been done before, if these allegations are serious. But there is also a question to say, and we spoke to a former BBC producer, senior producer yesterday, as to should some of this be investigated? Sexualised jokes, for example. I mean, the guy we spoke to yesterday, John Mayer, said, well, if you're going to hire a barra boy, you've got to expect him to behave like a barra boy. I mean, that's... Are we policing jokes now? It's smutty jokes.
Listen, this appears to be more than just jokes. Initially, it did seem like sexual comments, that word was thrown around. Now the word groping is being thrown around. So it's clear that there's more to it. Sexual jokes, you know, the climate has changed. You know yourself, in media, you can't get away with things like that anymore. In a professional setting, that's what you have to be. You have to remain professional. And you can have your sexual jokes among your buddy system in the pub, but it's not banter for work.
But, I mean, Kirsty Walk, the Newsnight presenter, said when she was on it, it was continuous. It wouldn't stop. It was sexually sort of harassing.
Yes, yeah.
And this went on in the studio, outside in the corridor, outside the dressing rooms. He is alleged to have been dancing naked with just a sock over his nether regions. Yeah. So, I mean, if it's continuous and it goes on and on, it becomes very frightening.
Exactly. And it becomes a culture as well in a workplace. If people are so used to this behaviour for so many years, they'll throw a blind eye to it because they'll just say, oh, that's Greg. And that appears to what has happened here. But that behaviour only gets worse. It escalates over time. The more you get away with, the more he's going to push the boundaries. So, you know, watch this space. I feel like there's going to be a lot more come to this.
I mean, what gets me is, what interests me, I suppose, is there something about the way the BBC chooses their big stars, makes them feel like big stars, there's an arrogance sets in, and then this behaviour becomes acceptable? It's just no coincidence that we're seeing some very big names now be accused of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I know, and it always seems to be the BBC off the back of the Strictly. But, you know, the one thing I will say is at least they are investigating the claims. I know it is a long time coming, as they said, that there was allegations put to them in 2012. But maybe it's the culture now. The BBC are trying to overturn things. We see them with the Strictly thing, investigating that, and now they're going to investigate this. So let's hope they do a thorough job and we actually get to the bottom of...
Tell you what, though, very quickly, Sir Rod Stewart is You can sense the steam coming out of his ears because he is, of course, married to Penny Lancaster, and they've obviously discussed it in the past. And he now feels that it's karma. There's his tweet, which I can't read from here, but
he calls him a fat, bald bully.
A bully. He said he was a bully, and Penny Lancaster said she's prepared to speak to the authorities as well. So, you know, hopefully they do take her up on that offer.
Well, Ellen, good to see you. Thank you. Well, Gregg Wallace's lawyers, as we say, have responded to all of this. They've said the suggestion that Wallace, who's presented the popular BBC One cooking show alongside John Turode since 2005, engages in behaviour of a sexually harassing nature, was entirely false.
we shall see what happens. Yeah, John Turode, by the way, who is his co-star, been very, very quiet. In fact, he's gone completely quiet.
Well, it's probably the best way.
It is, probably,
don't
yeah.
get involved, do you? Something like that.
OK, on to much more... I was going to say happy, but terrific, great sort of thing.
Well, a historic.
Historic, that's it, yeah. Because today marks a special occasion that would have been Sir Winston Churchill's 105th birthday. Am I right?
No, 150th.
150, yeah, 150th birthday.
Yes, he was born in 1874, and the wartime Prime Minister led the country, of course, through some of our darkest hours.
Our reporter, Will Hollis, has been looking back at the life of a man often called the greatest Briton ever.
We shall not flinch from the supreme trial. Lift up your hearts. All will come right.
During Britain's darkest days, Winston Churchill lit the way forward. On the 30th of November 1874, Churchill was born into the aristocracy at Blenheim Palace, destined for greatness. Poor grades at school and a troubled family life at home tainted his early years, but a fascination with the military saw him join the Royal Cavalry, travelling the world as a soldier and journalist. Yet it is for his years as an MP and later cigar-smoking Prime Minister that Sir Winston Churchill is most famously recognised. A master in weaponising words, his speeches are amongst the most memorable in the English language.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister. We will mete out to the Germans the measure, and more than the measure. They have meted out to us.
During the Second World War, Churchill spent countless hours underground in secret headquarters, plotting the route to victory alongside his war cabinet and Britain's allies. Kate Clements is the curator at Churchill War Rooms, a part of the Imperial War Museums.
Here we are in the map room in the Churchill War Rooms, and what we have here is the book in which the maps that were being signed out were recorded. And there's someone in here several times, so when it says PM, that stands for Prime Minister. So that's Churchill signing out maps to look at in April and May 1942. Churchill is a pivotal figure in history, certainly British history and 20th century history. He has become sort of legendary, but underneath all that there was, of course, a very real man who we know a great deal about.
Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight.
Victorious in 1945 and credited as the saviour of Britain, Churchill's extraordinary life ended aged 90.
150 years since his birth and decades on from his death, Winston Churchill remains a towering figure at home and abroad.
I think Churchill is the greatest Briton, at least of the modern era.
I learned all about him in school, shaped the modern world and all of Europe as we know it.
If it wasn't for him, we might all be speaking German.
Living memories of Churchill remain, for now, soon to be replaced by only history's account.
The soldiers of the Allied armies paid tribute to Britain's man of destiny, whose courage and steadfastness in the dark years will be remembered in the hour of victory.
A war leader triumphant and loved by his nation. Will Hollis, GB News.
A remarkable man.
I wonder what you think, whether he is the greatest Briton ever?
Yeah, well, Look, a lot of people think so. Interestingly, it's a case of not saying two-dimensionally, you know, what a wonderful man. He had his flaws, he had his issues, but that's part of what makes him great.
And he happened at the right time.
And he happened at the right time.
I just think that's so amazing. What if he'd happened in a different era and we wouldn't have had him? I mean, there were lots of people who spoke out against him and didn't want him to be Prime Minister during the war or anything like that. And in retrospect, it worked out probably
he was
the best.
Oh, I think so. Well, it's our poll of the day today. Is Winston Churchill our greatest Briton? We'll bring the results live throughout the day, so stay tuned for that. Final result in Nana's show later. And if you want to take part, scan the QR code on your screen that's just vanished. Or you can, if you're listening on the radio, go to gbnews.com/poll. I like to think remarkable man. Can I just say, because we're going to do the giveaway now, which is £50,000.
Oh, it's a new one?
It's gone up, yeah. £50,000. If I won that, I was going to say, what would you do with that money? I think plastic surgery.
What?
Or a holiday.
Why?
Because Wilhelmina has been in touch. He says, Stephen, you're looking older today.
Oh.
Anne is looking younger.
Oh.
Perhaps you need a holiday.
Yeah,
yes, I do need a holiday.
Yeah.
But thanks, Wilhelmina. That's really cheered me up on a Saturday morning. Thanks very much indeed.
But you could use that as, leverage to get a
holiday. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, if you want £50,000 in tax-free cash, you could, but you've got to be in it to win it. Here's how you join.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is Miss Universe fans hailing the end of wokeness and crediting the Trump effect after a biological woman, there's still some of them around apparently, has won the 2024 crown. She's Miss Denmark, because obviously the last decade, it's just been a beast transgender smurfs from Papua New Guinea. They're the only people allowed to win any beauty contest, you know what I mean? You're not allowed to have any.
Some of the trans women have won these. You definitely wouldn't say no.
Honestly, I've seen some, but I've seen some of them that didn't, and some that were clearly just there out of
have there been more than one trans woman who's won Miss? I didn't realise this.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've got a chart at home. This one isn't trans. Victoria Kjær Thielvig, 21 of Denmark. Everything about that description says attractive.
Nazis. Okay, I have seen pictures of her. She is very attractive.
Yes.
She is.
Yes.
I don't know exactly how to put it, but she is kind of not retro or vintage or so. She's quite an old-fashioned notion of beauty, just absolutely ice blue eyes.
No penis.
Absolutely extraordinary, clear skin and gorgeous blonde hair. I mean, it's absolutely kind of mid-70s.
No, apparently the sanity's returned to the beauty pageant industry, so they can get back to sexualising 4-year-olds and promoting anorexia like they used to. So
there is that.
She will earn an estimated $250,000 annual salary working full-time as Miss Universe, and will live in a luxurious New York City apartment as she carries out her duties, which involve glass coffee tables and rich Saudi businessmen.
Glass coffee tables. And visiting other planets and solar systems and constellations, I would imagine, in Miss Universe.
Being concerned about animals.
Yes, absolutely, and wanting to bring about world peace. I miss those days.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody.
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
6:48 and it's here with all the sport. Lots to talk about throughout the course of the morning, but this time let's have a look at the cricket, should we?
We should, yeah. Worthy of having a proper light shine on it, actually, because England have performed outstandingly well down in Christchurch. New Zealand have been in really imperious form over the last few months. Last month they went to India and whitewashed them over there. A really tough place to go. But England on 4-9-9. New Zealand leading by 4 runs, fully expected now England to go ahead and take the first test. And as I say, that's a really impressive performance. There have been 8 dropped catches by New Zealand. They've been extremely sloppy, considering how well they performed at home. But this is Bazball. Sometimes yeah, I know. You wanted him sacked a couple of years ago, remember?
I'm not a fan of Bazball.
No, but look, I mean, it's about being daring with the bat in hand, and that's exactly what they've been. Chris Wokes really came to the party, getting 2 balls out, or sorry, getting out 2 balls out and as many balls, 2 wickets and as many balls, I should say. Harry Brook, 171, outstanding knock from him, backed up by Ben Stokes on 80. That's his best performance in 18 months since the summer of 2023. So listen, a long way to go, but the tourists are in a really unassailable position now. I expect them to win the first test now and then go on even to do well on the tour. And as I say, really impressive.
Should we just have a look? We've got time to have a look at Ruud van Nistelrooy, who I feel very pleased with. He was snubbed by Man United, really, wasn't he? At least he's landed himself a decent job.
He has, exactly. So we said a few weeks ago, didn't we, when he was at Man United, he was dressing very smartly, which I think we can see on the picture now there for the benefit of our radio listeners. But they say dress for the job you want. Well, Manchester United didn't take any notice of him, but it appeared Leicester City did. And I'll tell you what I love about this, right? And you can tell me yourself later on, if not now, if you haven't got time, but how much diligence do you do when you take a job? Because Ruud van Nistelrooy said yesterday he had a discussion with the previous manager, Enzo Maresca, who was in charge last season. He said, we discussed the club, the structures, the people that work there, the squad, the stadium, the fans, the town and the surroundings. And it was a fantastic conversation. Sounds like a long conversation, doesn't it?
That's good. I mean,
yes,
they should talk about it at that level.
Yes,
you get to know the whole community, don't you?
Well, it's a huge job. I mean, look, it's a different job. It's not Leicester that won the Premier League in 2016. They're 4th from bottom, but nonetheless, we'll see what qualities he has.
Well, it also means that he now really thinks that he wants to be there, rather than just wanting a job.
Yeah. Look, any of these jobs in the Premier League are highly prestigious, and look, if he can steer Leicester to safety and this season, that'll be a job well done, no question about that.
OK, we'll talk more about that a bit later on.
Indeed.
Yes. Do stay with us. We're going to go through the papers any minute now with Emma Wolfe and Kevin Schofield.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What about train Wi-Fi? It's so funny the Times did this story, because I was on the train yesterday trying to do some work and connecting to the Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. It just doesn't work. It's pathetic. And then I opened the Times, and they've done a massive investigation. Loads of different rail routes from north to south.
Was that the James Bond thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What's well, that passenger got through, or almost got through, one episode. One James Bond movie in 8 hours.
But you know, it's interesting. We call it train Wi-Fi, but it isn't. It's just really a SIM card on a train, really. So if your own phone's not going to get signal, why would we assume that the train's going to have signal? It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're in Japan or South Korea, whose infrastructure is infinitely better than ours, you're just not going to get signal. You have to download those films way before you get on
There is technology that can help with that. You know, there really is. If they found ways to put it underground, they can get it on ground and get you going. I definitely think, you know, with the price that we're paying for these tickets, they can get the Wi-Fi going. There is technology.
That's why it's so frustrating, isn't
Call
it?
Elon, get a Starlink. Let's go.
If you're a passenger paying hundreds of pounds for a season ticket or whatever you call it, and you know, commute to work every single day, and you're paying all this money, and you can't.
It's so expensive. You'd expect Wi-Fi at the basic. Yeah, exactly.
But it happens with phone signal as well. I'll be walking down London in Park Lane or somewhere else, or down on the south coast. I just don't have phone signal, and I think to myself, what on earth is going on?
Doesn't it feel like 5G's made it worse, though?
Yeah.
Because I feel like 4G, that didn't happen so much, but 5G just feels like...
Yeah, and then I always get this little E in the top corner of my phone, and I don't get any signal. I think it's got worse over the past couple of years, yeah, especially with 5G. I agree with that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time for the papers at 6:46 with political commentator Emma Wolfe and the political editor at HuffPost, Kevin Schofield. Morning to you both.
Good morning. My goodness, there's a lot of news around today, isn't there? Emma, first of all, I suppose all of the newspapers are looking back on yesterday's vote. You're looking at the Daily Mail front page.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to overstate kind of the importance of this in terms of kind of societal change and in terms of how we deal with the elderly and the vulnerable, how we treat them and how we approach, I think, end-of-life care, really, how it's going to change sort of the way we think about that. Obviously, you can't control what happens at the end of your life, but I think a lot of people didn't realise how much they cared about it, if that makes sense, until yesterday, until the vote went through. It's what I've been hearing from a lot of people, that they're very alarmed and upset and worried, even though they felt on both sides, even though they could see the argument on both sides, which many, many of us can. And the implications, obviously, of this are immense. It was a debate lasting nearly 5 hours, and obviously we heard many emotive stories, which maybe, as Anna was saying earlier on, maybe did or didn't have a place there, really, because, you know, it's Parliament. We want to know kind of how the legislation is going to work. This was the second reading, so I think it comes back in April?
Yeah. I've still got a long time to go in terms of the parliamentary process, but it is effectively going to happen.
It will happen.
I mean, yesterday was the crunch. I mean, it's not really going to fall now. There might be
but the amendments
tweaks and safeguards strengthening.
I say tweaks. There could be a lot of amendments.
Well, let's hope so, because 5 hours, and I know there'd been lots of discussion in advance, but 5 hours is not long enough to discuss something.
I think that was part of the problem. A lot of people who might instinctively be in favour of it still thought 5 hours doesn't feel like enough time for something of this magnitude, you know.
Can I say that, I mean, what annoys me about MPs is with something like this, you see it with loads of debates, where I think it's an opportunity for us to stand up and say, well, this happened to me and this happened to my parents. And this. Well, actually, who cares? Who cares? Because it's not about your parents' situation where you say it's about everybody else. It's about those people who don't want to make the choice to die but feel pressured into it or whatever. It's about something different than your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I guess those experiences inform maybe people's opinion of it, but as legislators, you should be able to take a step back and look at it in the round for
But when we
the whole
get that with the
country.
next stage, I mean, the next stage will probably be the Lords.
But that was what I meant about the emotive nature of that debate. We've all got personal stories. Many of us have seen elderly relatives die, have gone through that process with them. We know that's for us to feel. I think Stephen's right. There are so many hard questions. Things like judges, you know, a judge will sign it off. Hello, we've got a massive shortage of judges. Do you think there are enough family judges who are going to have time to go through each of these situations in detail and understand the nuance of everything? Rather than just rubber stamp it.
We see, that's what Wes Streeting is worried about, isn't he?
Exactly.
He's saying it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And he was just putting that argument forward, because obviously it will cost, because people will be involved. 2 doctors plus a judge is not going to be easy to get them together.
No.
And to... it's going to be expensive.
And the other side of the debate, which is many of us, and Wes Streeting himself, wants proper end-of-life care, whether that's palliative care or just proper social care for those who are vulnerable, who are disabled.
I heard someone argue yesterday that if this went through, what it means is that the NHS would fully fund death, but palliative care is only funded by 20 or 30%, which isn't right.
That doesn't feel right at all, does it? And I mean, I think as well, I thought it was significant when Wes Streeting spoke out about it, because as a health secretary, I mean, he's largely going to be responsible, the politician responsible for implementing this legislation. And if he thinks it's unworkable and is going to have negative consequences, then I think really you should. I think a lot of Labour MPs probably did take that on board, but obviously wasn't enough to stop.
It was a big, you know, it was a decisive vote.
Well,
if we haven't got it right, surely it's better not to go there yet.
Well, that was what there was a lot. As I said, there was a lot of people I think who instinctively support it, but just were very uneasy about how little parliamentary time there was devoted to it. Because yesterday it was something like 2.5-minute limit on speeches.
Yes, some of them were.
What is the rush on this? What is the drive? Just because Esther Ransom wants to discuss it, just because Kim Ledbetter agrees with it, and I respect their passion and their commitment and their campaigning, what is the rush? Why have we got to this stage now?
Well, I think the argument there is that the private members' bill system, which is what it was, is not really lengthy enough for legislation of this magnitude. Is the argument against it.
But that would be tweaked, wouldn't it? That could be altered.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely. And well, it's up to the government, really. If the government wanted to allocate enough time, like give up some of their time in Parliament, they could have had a 2-day debate, which would have obviously given everyone a chance to speak about it.
I do wonder with this, we have people saying, well, look, it wasn't that close. I don't know, because it would only take 28 people to vote the other way.
330 to 275.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 55 majority. So 28 going the other way would have. So I mean, it was in parliamentary terms relatively close. But it just felt to me in the last few days leading up to it, it did feel like it was going in that direction. So I wasn't that surprised when I saw the result. But
I'm surprised by it in that I was disappointed it went through, and yet I've always been someone who's said I would like the choice.
Yeah,
me too, Stephen.
When it comes to me,
but now I feel that it's gone through, I feel quite fearful of the consequences of what's going to
because how it changes things. It's not about us, is it? It's about those. It's about other people, and that's the concern.
Yeah, I think it does come down to is there enough scrutiny of this legislation? Now I get there's still got committee stage, report stage, the House of Lords, all of that, and there's still a lot of parliamentary hurdles for it to clear. However, like I said, the fact that it passed yesterday means I think it's almost certain to
and there is the small print to worry about already, I gather, on this.
And that's what's going to be so
Things
important,
like
isn't it?
You've got to have 2 doctors, but those 2 doctors can know each other really well and work in the same practice and be of the same opinion. They don't have to be 2 different doctors from different places. And, and tell me what doctors don't know judges as well. I mean, you could find that everybody is agreeing or disagreeing because they're just they know each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's a kind of conspiracy theory that doctors want to, get rid of people. I'm just more worried about that old lady who's maybe on her own or has a family that just can't be doing with the burden, can't afford all the care and aren't getting the care and just feel this is probably the best way. I am a burden on my family. So many, we're all articulate, we can probably ask, and doctors do have ways of easing people out of life. There are gentle, not assisted unassisted dying, but there are so many vulnerable people who are not going to be aware of all the legislation and all of the kind of
That's what I'm concerned. The minute someone ends their life because they feel they should, rather than because
or they're
they
facing
want to.
care home bills for the next
But you
5
hear old
years.
people talking in that language.
Yeah. I don't want to be a burden.
Already?
Yeah.
Right, we're out of time. But fascinating to talk through that a bit more with you two. We'll see you later on. Thanks very much indeed.
Here's the weather now with Honor.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times, but it is going to feel a lot milder, particularly compared to the chilly week that we've had. So quite a cloudy and grey start across much of the country, and it's probably going to be sticking like that through much of the day. The best of the sunshine just to the northeast of any hills, perhaps across Scotland or northern England. We're also going to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, this mainly across western areas, perhaps lingering across northern parts of Scotland too. And it's going to be quite blustery at times around coasts. But for many of us, a mild day on offer, highs of around 13 or 14 Celsius. So to finish the day on Saturday, we're going to continue to see fairly similar conditions. Still plenty of cloud across Scotland, perhaps some longer spells of rain across the Northern Isles, and still drips and drabs of rain and drizzle around hilly areas, still quite blustery around coasts too. Fairly cloudy across Northern Ireland with some longer spells of rain, this heavy at times just starting to creep into the west, and plenty of rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, southwest England. Driest of the weather across central and southeastern England, but still plenty of cloud here. And then through the course of the night, we'll see those longer spells of rain slowly creep their way eastwards across the country. This is going to be turning heavy at times, particularly to start off Sunday morning, and particularly in the west and moving across parts of Scotland with plenty of blustery showers behind. Once again, the driest of the weather across the very far southeast. And it's a very mild night on offer too. Some places not really dropping temperatures too much compared to what they were in the day. Now through into Sunday, once again, we'll continue to see that rain sweeping its way eastward. It's most likely that most of us will see some rain at some point on Sunday, and plenty of blustery showers across the far northwest of the country too, and still fairly breezy around coastal areas. But on the whole, it's going to be another mild day on offer, highs once again around 13 to 14 degrees. That's it from me then. Bye-bye.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest. Good luck.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The assisted dying bill is backed by MPs.
Yes, the Prime Minister was amongst those who supported the vote after what was a very emotional debate.
However, those opposed promised to redouble their efforts to try to persuade MPs to change their mind as they move on to months of detailed scrutiny.
President Zelensky says he is willing to cede some territory to Russia to end the war for the first time in exchange for the protection of a NATO umbrella.
Penny Lancaster hits out at Greg Wallace, saying she's prepared to go to the authorities over his behaviour after the MasterChef host has stepped down following allegations of inappropriate sexual comments.
And today marks 150 years since the birth of Winston Churchill. We'll be looking back at his life and what made him perhaps one of Britain's most famous figures.
Happy St Andrew's Day. Our reporter Tony Maguire will be in St Andrews, where the Scottish patron saint is being celebrated.
And as young people are apparently going out less and less, we're asking if Gen Z is the boring generation.
Good morning. Harry Brooks' outstanding batting performance has left England on the verge of an impressive first Test victory against New Zealand in Christchurch. And he wasn't gone for long, but Ruud van Nistelrooy is back in football after he was announced as the manager of Leicester City.
Hello there, good morning. It's going to be quite a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times. Mild though, and plenty of dry weather today. I'll be here with all the details.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Now, I know you were very excited by... She's worried now.
Yeah.
She's worried, ladies and gents. Notre Dame.
Oh,
which
yes.
it's not reopened, but President Macron was there visiting yesterday, and we got our first look inside.
Oh, they've done such an amazing job on it.
It's like it's brand new.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny. It was built in the 12th century, and it would have looked like that because we got used over the centuries to it looking dingy, and to the stonework being frankly dirty, grimy, and layers and layers of dust and dirt on all of the wonderful things in there. But what they've done now is restored it to how it must have looked once upon a time when they actually unveiled it and let the public in the 12th century.
Yeah.
And it looks magnificent. And it's taken something like 40,000 of France's greatest craftsmen to do all of the work that had to be done. 2,000 oak trees went into rebuilding the beams, because that's what the beams were originally made from, oak trees.
Oh, look,
and I mean, look at the ceiling.
It's just, if you're listening on the radio, just picture what you can think of it. Picture any cathedral, but just the inside is sort of gleaming white, which is just not what you see, is it, anymore? It's just absolutely stunning. I did hear that they were thinking of doing some cleaning anyway, but they have used the opportunity to clean every last bit of it while they were in there. It's been 5 years.
And there are some modern works of art as well that have been done and contributed by, again, French artists at the moment. Some amazing things that, when they do open it to the public, it will be marvellous to see. But at the moment, the outside is still a mess of scaffolding. But the inside looks terrific. What I don't quite understand and need to research is President Macron originally wanted to open the inside with the Pope there. And the Pope refused.
Really?
Something to do with France and the, politics and state and religion. So something to do with the separation of, what do they call it? It's got that amazing word of the separation of state and...
Oh, I don't know.
And religion. I'll find out. But the Pope refused, apparently. But Macron went ahead and just sort of had a special guided tour around. And I think there will be some special service at some point.
Oh, I'm sure. But it is stunning. Well, it once again becomes a tourist attraction, doesn't it? Perhaps in a way that it wasn't even before. Something just remarkable.
Well, they say
to
that
see.
the French sort of, as you do, took it for granted and never really went there very much. And, of course, since it started to burn, realised what a terrible loss it would be. And have thrown their all into rebuilding it. And it, at the moment, looks fantastic.
Well, good. I'm glad they've done it. We've done it, haven't we? Over here, we did it with Windsor. We did it with York Minster. And sometimes these tragedies bring on a renewal in a way. So I'm glad to see it back up and running.
Oh, yes.
Soon to be.
It'll be fabulous.
It will be.
To go there, yeah.
Right. Let's have a look at our key story today, which is about assisted dying. Now, it is one step closer to becoming legal in England and Wales after MPs backed the bill in that historic vote yesterday.
The vote followed 4.5 hours of debate, 330 MPs voting in favour at the end, and 275 opposing it.
The Prime Minister voted in favour alongside the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves.
The legislation will mean that terminally ill adults with 6 months left to live will be able to request assistance in ending their life.
Deputy Political Editor for the Mail on Sundays, Anna Mikalova, and she's here. Morning, Anna. I mean, so we're a step closer. If this goes through, though, in whatever it may be, sort of best part of 12 months, it could still be substantially different legislation from what we saw talked about yesterday.
Yes, and the funny thing is that a lot of people... I spoke to some MPs who voted in favour of it yesterday as they came out of the chamber, and even they want it to be quite a lot different to what the bill actually is right now. I think it was second reading. Obviously, a lot of MPs wanted to show that they supported this in principle because, of course, the risk is it wouldn't come back for generations. And there was a feeling that society has moved to the point where people think it is time for something. But there are quite a few holes in the bill and quite a few problems with the way it was drafted. So there are a lot of MPs who want, at the next stage, which is Kim Leadbeater will appoint a committee of MPs to scrutinise it. There'll be lots and lots of campaigners making representations, lobbying for amendments, and they really want the detail to be hammered out because they say, if that doesn't work, we'll vote it down, we'll vote against it at third reading.
That's interesting. Kim Leadbeater gets to say who sits on the committee.
Yes, which is one of the controversial things about it being a private member's bill, because in reality, what usually happens is because Kim Leadbeater is obviously a proponent of the bill, that usually means it's swayed towards more people who are pro being on the committee.
Well, you would have thought,
because you pick the... But, I mean, I'm told she is being conscientious about it and she will want... Because essentially her credibility and the bill's credibility is on the line. So you will want, hopefully, really, really good people who know the detail on both sides of the argument to be in that committee.
Well, I mean, look, she's a... I don't know how to describe Kim Leadbeater. She's not someone you would level criticisms at, is she?
I don't know. I think yesterday it was one of the low points of the debate, actually, where she had to stand up and apologise and correct the record in the House about her own bill because she had misled the House by saying that she had the support of the judiciary, and she had to say, I'm sorry, I implied that serving judges backed it, and they don't. And I think that's a really quite an embarrassing moment. There have been real problems with the way she sold her bill, and that has been one of the main criticisms of her and the legislation.
She would do well to appoint to the committee some people who are really opposed to it, because they have to accept that it has gone this far in the system, but they will be the best people to pick real holes in it, if there are holes there to be picked at.
Absolutely, and I think, look, I think Stephen, she definitely probably has her heart in the right place, but she's just not. She's not a big legislative expert.
No.
And I think with something like this, as Anne says, you really need those people who are just going to be right in the detail. And that will lend credibility to her own bill. I do find it interesting how, if you compare it to the 2015 vote, how few abstentions there were. Because in 2015, it was 202 MPs didn't vote.
Gosh, that's a lot.
And this time, only 46. And I do think that probably tells you that perhaps the country is moving to a place where...
Wes Streeting was opposed to it.
Yes.
Which is interesting because he's the health secretary. It's also when he said he was going to vote against, he was also criticised because he was accused of politicising it because he talked about the money side of it. But actually, that is important.
Of course it is. His intervention was very, very significant. He is one of the two cabinet ministers in charge of implementing how this is delivered, and both of them, he and the Justice Secretary, both came out against quite vocally, and that really did give a lot of MPs pause for thought, and should going forward as well, because the worry is, A, how do we implement it well? The NHS is on its knees right now. Can it actually cope with this on top? But also, social care is in such a mess, hasn't been fixed despite many, many promises from politicians of all sides. Palliative care is a real postcode lottery. I mean, there are some pockets with excellent palliative care and some with awful, you know, when you have a terrible end-of-life care. And before you fix that, how can you, in good conscience, then start legalising?
And the Justice Department is going to get involved, because inevitably the lawyers are going to step in somewhere along the line, aren't they?
Yes.
If people disagree. I mean, we've had one viewer already, Chris, good morning, says, will there be a permanent opt-out list for this assisted dying legislation? I don't want it ever being a point of discussion regarding myself.
Well...
I think that's a really good point. My understanding is there isn't currently proposed a process of appeal as well that's particularly transparent. So if something happens and then it goes wrong, what's the actual process of challenging it?
Yeah, and it is all that nitty-gritty that needs to be sorted out. Has always been the issue with this. It's the nitty-gritty. Anna, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. I had a salient point to make, and I can't remember what it was now.
Oh,
so there you go.
Sorry, did I interrupt you and put you off?
No, it's all right. It's my old age kicking in.
It'll come back to you.
The little grey cells are going on all of this, but I do think it's just got to be so carefully thought through.
It needs time.
Oh, I'll tell you what it was. It was what Kevin Schofield said to us in the break, when he said the problem with this is that if someone is given a 6-month diagnosis, what are they going to say? Well, you could try this, you could try this medication, you could just let it ride out, or are they going to then present, or you could decide to end your life as an option?
This is the really controversial part of the bill. At the moment, doctors have the power, according to this bill, would have the power to suggest it. And that is one of the things that even people who are for it really don't want to go through, because it opens up a whole quagmire and also puts doctors in a very difficult position.
Yeah.
But you know there are people who look at doctors like they're gods.
Yes.
So that dynamic could be very, very risky.
That worries me, because you will get people who weren't really thinking of it, going, oh, perhaps I should just end it now.
And then family stepping in and say, that should never have been suggested to you. I'm going to sue the doctor who said that. And then the lawyers get involved. Yeah, I think that's my worst fear, is that once lawyers get involved, it'll just be interminable and probably make the process far, far worse and makes the lawyers rich at the end of the day.
Stuff like that I would rather see debated rather than hearing from MPs' own personal stories, frankly.
I disagree with you about that. I thought I was very appreciative of the fact they had personal stories and they felt so strongly about it, because they're representing their constituents and they'd heard a lot of their personal stories. I think that's what it is. It's a very, very personal issue.
I just don't think it should be personal for them. You've got to take a step back You've got to look at the bigger picture,
I thought
haven't
their
you?
testimony was very strong sometimes.
Oh, well, let us know what you think. Whose side you're on that one. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Now, there's a lot of news around that's happened actually in the last 24 hours, and this is no exception. It's leading the newspapers a lot at the moment. It's what everybody's got a view. Last night, President Zelensky suggested that he is prepared to end the war in return for NATO membership, even if Russia doesn't immediately return seized land.
Well, Zelensky's proposal would signal an end to Ukraine's attempts to win back by force those territories that have been seized by Moscow.
Earlier, we spoke to the former British Army spokesperson, Major Mike Shearer.
Yeah, I must admit, I was shocked to hear this morning, but I suspect that he is taking a much more strategic view of how this war may end going forward. It's much easier to give a definitive when it's not. So he can say yes right now, join NATO, play the long game, and then see what happens within the fullness of time. I think he's just taking a fairly pragmatic and strategic view of how it may well pan out. You give a little bit away today and you take a lot back tomorrow. I mean, the honest truth is, who knows? But I suspect that what you've just intimated there is right. He's given them he's given the dog a bone, if you like, to see how we can stop it as it is, knowing fine well that if he gets himself into the NATO club, that and there's insurrection coming from within to Russia, that they may well be able to claw it back at a later time. From where I'm sat, I could argue that you do not wish to reward failure. And you would be rewarding failure if you were to say, OK, you can have the Donbass if you want, you can have the Crimea if you want, and we'll leave it there. The problem is that no one ever speaks about is that any NATO country can veto the joining of any other country.
It was fascinating during the interview. President Zelensky talked about how he'd already met President Trump before we knew the outcome of the election, though, and that they had talked through various scenarios and everything. But he was treading very carefully. A couple of times he said Trump, just referred to him as Trump, and then corrected himself and said President Trump. And I thought, yes, that shows quite an interesting shift in his attitudes.
I don't think Trump would mind being called
No,
Trump, would he?
not
I think
at all,
it's part of the...
But I think Zelensky was trying...
Charm.
President Zelensky was just trying to show a little bit of respect there.
Well, it's going to have to.
Yeah,
going to have
absolutely.
to. Right, today marks a historic moment, actually, because it would have been Winston Churchill's 150th birthday.
He was born in 1874. The wartime Prime Minister led the country through some of our darkest hours. Well, our reporter, Will Hollis, has been looking back at the life of the man who's often referred to as the greatest ever Briton.
We shall not flinch from the supreme trial. Lift up your hearts. All will come right.
During Britain's darkest days, Winston Churchill lit the way forward. On the 30th of November 1874, Churchill was born into the aristocracy at Blenheim Palace, destined for greatness. Poor grades at school and a troubled family life at home tainted his early years, but a fascination with the military saw him join the Royal Cavalry, travelling the world as a soldier and journalist. Yet it is for his years as an MP and later cigar-smoking Prime Minister that Sir Winston Churchill is most famously recognised. A master in weaponising words, his speeches are amongst the most memorable in the English language.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister. We will mete out to the Germans the measure, and more than the measure. They have meted out to us.
During the Second World War, Churchill spent countless hours underground in secret headquarters, plotting the route to victory alongside his war cabinet and Britain's allies. Kate Clements is the curator at Churchill War Rooms, a part of the Imperial War Museums.
Here we are in the map room in the Churchill War Rooms, and what we have here is the book in which the maps that were being signed out were recorded. And there's someone in here several times, so when it says PM, that stands for Prime Minister. So that's Churchill signing out maps to look at in April and May 1942. Churchill is a pivotal figure in history, certainly British history and 20th century history. He has become sort of legendary, but underneath all that there was, of course, a very real man who we know a great deal about.
Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight.
Victorious in 1945 and credited as the saviour of Britain, Churchill's extraordinary life ended aged 90.
150 years since his birth and decades on from his death, Winston Churchill remains a towering figure at home and abroad.
I think Churchill is the greatest Briton, at least of the modern era.
I learned all about him in school. He shaped the modern world and all of Europe as we know it.
If it wasn't for him, we might all be speaking German.
Living memories of Churchill remain, for now, soon to be replaced by only history's account.
The soldiers of the Allied armies paid tribute to Britain's man of destiny, whose courage and steadfastness in the dark years will be remembered in the hour of victory.
A war leader triumphant and loved by his nation. Will Hollis, GB News.
I'll tell you what was remarkable about Churchill. He was Defence Secretary, in effect. It wasn't called that at the time. And Gallipoli, which obviously went all horribly wrong, was his fault.
Yes.
And he lost the job, and he joined up and went on the front line.
Yeah. And took
afterwards.
Took his bathtub with him.
Yeah. But after, it's like the Defence Secretary now, something going horribly wrong and saying, right, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to join the armed forces and go and fight on the front line. I didn't just go for a couple of months, he was out there for a long time.
He took part in the last ever charge, cavalry charge. And he was just, if you watch Young Winston, the movie. But it's true, because I was at Blenheim Palace recently and it's there. But yes, he took part in the last ever cavalry charge, which must be one of the most frightening experiences ever. But, no, I mean, he had a difficult upbringing in that he didn't... He wasn't no good at school at all.
No, and he didn't feel loved at all by his parents.
Missed his mother terribly and wrote the most heart-rending letters home to her.
Begging to go home.
Yeah. Didn't pass his exams, didn't do well, couldn't get into Sandhurst, I think, but in the end he proved himself, didn't he? And I think it's like we were saying a bit earlier, he happened at the right time.
Where would we have been without him? It's our poll of the day today. We're asking, is Winston Churchill our greatest Briton? The final result in Nana's show later on. If you want to take part, scan the QR code on your screen if you're watching on TV, or go to gbnews.com/poll if you're listening on the radio.
Do you think some people will say Queen Elizabeth, but what about Queen Elizabeth being the greatest Briton?
Oh, but possibly. Possibly. Be interesting to see how the poll goes. I mean, I think he's going to win it, but if there's a...
Who else would you nominate, though?
It'd have to be Queen Elizabeth, would have to be up there.
I think so.
In modern times. Whether there'd be a third candidate, I don't know. I can't think of one. At
Greatest
the minute.
ever Briton. What about Queen Elizabeth I? Well, she was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
She achieved a lot. Boadicea. You could go even further back.
Boadicea?
Yeah, Boudica.
Yeah, anyway, well, I don't know. I'd stick with the two we've got, but I don't want to...
Queen Victoria!
I wouldn't want to compete between the two. Empress of India.
Yes!
Yeah, I don't know. It's all... Anyway, here's the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's It's going to be a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times, but it is going to feel a lot milder, particularly compared to the chilly week that we've had. So quite a cloudy and grey start across much of the country, and it's probably going to be sticking like that through much of the day. The best of the sunshine just to the northeast of any hills, perhaps across Scotland or northern England. We're also going to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, this mainly across western areas, perhaps lingering across northern parts of Scotland too. And it's going to be quite blustery at times around coasts. But for many of us, a mild day on offer, highs of around 13 or 14 Celsius. So to finish the day on Saturday, we're going to continue to see fairly similar conditions. Still plenty of cloud across Scotland, perhaps some longer spells of rain across the Northern Isles, and still drips and drabs of rain and drizzle around hilly areas, still quite blustery around coasts too. Fairly cloudy across Northern Ireland with some longer spells of rain, this heavy at times just starting to creep into the west, and plenty of rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, southwest England. Driest of the weather across central and southeastern England, but still plenty of cloud here. And then through the course of the night, we'll see those longer spells of rain slowly creep their way eastwards across the country. This is going to be turning heavy at times, particularly to start off Sunday morning, and particularly in the west and moving across parts of Scotland with plenty of blustery showers behind. Once again, the driest of the weather across the very far southeast. And it's a very mild night on offer too. Some places not really dropping temperatures too much compared to what they were in the day. Now through into Sunday, once again, we'll continue to see that rain sweeping its way eastward. It's most likely that most of us will see some rain at some point on Sunday, and plenty of blustery showers across the far northwest of the country too, and still fairly breezy around coastal areas. But on the whole, it's going to be another mild day on offer, highs once again around 13 to 14 degrees. That's it from me then. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, that was the weather. Now, how about our Great British giveaway? Because now it's your chance to win 50 grand in tax-free cash. We must be doing well.
Yes.
It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away. It could be yours. Here's how.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday, and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And Of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
And Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Just a quick one on Greatest Britons. Steve Walker said, my greatest Brit would be William Wilberforce, leader of the movement to abolish the slave trade. He was from Hull, wasn't he? William Wilberforce?
He definitely was somewhere north.
I think he was Hull. But it's a great idea.
That is a good one.
We're asking in our poll of the day today whether it's Winston Churchill, because it's his 150th birthday today. Oh, there you go. He's born in Hull, was William Wilberforce. I mean, Churchill, he's going to win the vote, isn't he? He's bound to.
He always does.
Lots of other really significant Brits in history. But a great suggestion, Steve Walker. Thank you for that. Now, a report has revealed that nightclubs are under threat because fewer youngsters are going out on Friday and Saturday nights. Apparently, they're going out earlier in the day.
Well, this morning we're asking then, have Gen Z become the boring generation?
Let's talk to founder of Pimlico Plumbers, Charlie Mullins, and political commentator for Young Voices UK, Portia Berry-Kilby. Good to see you both this morning. Portia, are you really dull?
I wouldn't want to say. It's always dangerous saying that Gen Z are quite exciting because viewers might think, oh, I'm off on one. I don't think Gen Z are dull and boring. They're certainly socialising in different ways from millennials and from generations older than that. But I think it's harsh to say that because they're shunning sex, drugs and rock and roll, that they're just boring old frumps sat at home. They are seeing different ways of socialising, be that hanging out at ice cream parlours, there's a surge in that, or crochet is seeing an uprise. All of these more wholesome crafts and other forms of entertainment and activities are increasing in popularity.
Just to be clear, apparently Gen Z is anyone born between 1995 and 2012. I don't know where that puts you, Charlie, but, I mean, were you typical of your generation? Are you still?
I still am, yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, I think it's a sign of a softer generation where people are more sport today, they're more woke, they're more, working from home, staying from home, don't want to go out. I mean, the old saying used to be work hard, play hard, and I think that's long gone now because many, many reasons, social media and also money. Undoubtedly, money comes into it. But on saying that, years ago, people would still go out, if they worked hard, you still go out and enjoy yourself. So I think it's a softening of the generation, the sport generation that basically don't want to get out of bed. I mean, I know it's not what that lady wants to hear, but that's the way I see it. And
hold on, Charlie. It's what if you take it back a few generations to people who were born, towards the start of the 20th century, where actually You didn't go out. The nightclubs and things didn't exist. There might have been a dance once a month or something that people went to, but people were a bit more wholesome. They did more activities. They were a bit more... I mean, the argument would be that you get to the 50s and 60s and actually things just went too wild.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, as I say, different people, different things, but all the people I know that work hard, they play hard. And, you know, I know many youngsters that don't go out now, and they're so concerned about social media, and they can be in contact with their friends more without having to go out. So it's definitely a decline in it, because we wouldn't be having the conversation, and bars and nightclubs are dead at night now. You've also got the daytime drinking that doesn't help. And I honestly believe it that the fact that, you know, so many more youngsters don't go to work these days affects the fact that they don't go out and enjoy themselves of an evening.
Portia, why do you think it is then that Gen Zers are opting for what Charlie would call a sort of snowflake existence, or certainly a quieter existence than previous generations? Why are they doing it?
I think there's a couple of reasons. Certainly the cost is one, and the cost of an average pint now is £4.70. I'm pretty sure it wasn't quite so high in Charlie's day, and it wasn't even so high at the start of my time when I was allowed to legally drink. But in the past 8 years, it has skyrocketed. But also, not to blame everything on COVID, but COVID did normalise a form of interaction and socialising, which was remote, it was online, and that maybe spurred things a little, like turbocharged rejection of nightlife and that sort of culture. But also, why would you go to a nightclub? Maybe to meet someone. That's now all shifted online and onto dating apps. I know hardly anyone who goes to a bar to pick up a potential partner. It's pretty much matching online, which actually has a lot of benefits, because you can filter for certain things. You can have a chat before you meet them. Obviously, there's a lot lost by not meeting organically in a social situation. But if people aren't having one-night stands, is that necessarily such a bad idea? Maybe you could argue that younger people are being a little bit more responsible than their parents' generation.
You're just too old school, Charlie.
No way are youngsters more responsible than the older generation. No way at all. Look, there's obviously a safety aspect, and look, rightly, she said social media. But, you know, a lot of it's to do with just woke laziness, weak people, can't be bothered, spoil, social media. I mean, you know, you get an hard-working person, they still go out and about. It's more the people that have just become spoiled and too cosy in bed. I mean, you know, people I know, youngsters that work hard, they still play hard. But not a lot of people work hard now, the youngsters. So I'm going to disagree with you, but I would do anyhow, because I know that, you know, getting out and about is good for you. I mean, I was out last night till 2 o'clock. Here I am today. I'm in Spain, OK, but here I am today, still up and about, and got loads of life in me. So I just think it's the way youngsters have been sort of spoiled, really, I think, if I'm being honest, and they can lay all day. And their parents just give them what they want, if they can.
I have to disagree with you on that, Charlie. I'm 50, and
then you tell me then what the problem is.
Well, no, I'm just saying, because I mean, I'm 50 and I work hard, but I don't play hard, and I like to be in bed by 9:30. I mean, it's
look, there's nothing wrong with it. What I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing wrong with going out. I mean, I don't live in Spain to sit in a chair and read a book all day. I live in Spain for the weather, the social life, and getting on with life. But everybody's different. It's not right nor wrong, but let's not run away with the idea that, you know, the new generation are in a better position than what we are as far as working hard and playing hard. You know, I think if they worked harder, they would play harder.
Oh, well,
Interesting point to leave it on, isn't it? I can't help thinking that it's something to do with laptops and you know, phones and tablets, things like that.
I'm sure
You've got more of your entertainment is just on a screen in front of you. You don't have to go out and get it.
That's true. Right, we've got to leave it there. Charlie, Portia, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you both. Go and have another drink, Charlie. If you are living out in Spain like Charlie, I don't blame him. I think you should be allowed to do what you want, basically, and if that means not going out, well, fair play to you.
Don't you think it's the fact that you've got everything that you want at home? You don't even have to go shopping nowadays out, do you? You do that online too.
It's great.
It's computers, yeah.
It's lovely.
Blame the computer.
Right, Adrian's going to have your sport in just a moment. Don't go anywhere, not even online.
It's GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's a time for the vegan community to get together, as well as an opportunity for non-vegans to try going plant-based.
Well, joining us now is from her delicious hummus, and we both love hummus, this is a great thing. This is the founder of Chickpea, Hannah McCollum. Hannah, lovely to meet you. And you've brought in some of your beautiful products in front of you here, so can you talk us through some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a range of chilled hummus, and then latest to the range of a new ambient snack pot, which is a fridgeless hummus that doesn't require refrigeration. But I started Chickpea because of my love for hummus, but also sustainability and reducing food waste and encouraging people to be more plant-based without saying go vegan.
Does normal, say, traditional hummus have anything that's not vegan appropriate in it?
Not really.
No,
I think
it's always chickpeas, olive oil, maybe some other bits.
Yeah, lemon juice, aquafibre or water to help with the consistency, garlic, and rapeseed oil or olive oil.
And there's a bit of a misconception about veganism that I hear a lot, where people say, look, I'm not a vegan, I love my steaks, I'll just get out of there now. But there's a misconception that you don't get the protein, you don't get the fats, and you're kind of just eating processed salads and, fake meat and things. But that's not quite the case, especially with chickpeas, right?
Yeah, I think protein is really important, and actually a lot of people think I need a certain amount of fish every week or meat, but actually a lot of the fish and meat that you're eating are eating higher protein foods, so algae, seaweed, pulses, all these types of plant-based foods. For me, veganism is like you could have a delicious rye seeded bread with just loads of roasted vegetables, seeds, tahini sauce on top. That sounds. And there's nothing beige in there at all.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time to go through the sport now. Aidan is here. What are we going to kick off with?
Well, I think the cricket deserves a bit of a mention here because England have performed outstandingly well overnight. Harry Brook with the bat, 171, a magnificent knock. Just to give a bit of context here, this is New Zealand at home in Christchurch. They went to India last month and whitewashed India. Nobody wins in India. And so that's where New Zealand are at. For England to go down there and win the first test, especially with some numbers like this, Harry Brook 171, Ben Stokes backing it up with 80, Chris Woakes taking 2 balls and as many balls as well, and so 2 wickets and as many balls. 499 they're on. They just need 4 more runs. That's what New Zealand are currently winning by, and they can finish that off tomorrow. It's close of play down in Christchurch right now. But look, New Zealand were sloppy. They dropped 8 balls, 8 catches, I would say. They've not been as ruthless as you might expect them to be. But this is Bazball for you. You know, just when you think England don't have any hope going to New Zealand, it wasn't quite as bad as actually. That's a bit unfair. But just as you think they're the underdogs, they're going because their batting play is just so aggressive and so expansive. Anything can happen, and it appears that New Zealand have been taken by surprise there. So we'll have a conclusion to that tomorrow. But at the moment, looking very, very good for the tourists.
Well, at least that's something to be pleased with.
Can we have a look at the Premier League? There's lots going on today.
Yes.
Loving it, though, with the football. Manchester City aren't playing today, are they? Just as well.
Tomorrow against Liverpool, huge game, and yeah, we'll look at it properly.
They'll be looking forward to that. Then.
Oh, that's away at Anfield as well, where they never tend to win. I think they've won once there since 2003. So yeah, Pep Guardiola made an interesting comment yesterday, Stephen, because we know about the 5 defeats in a row. They played in the Champions League earlier this week as well, home to Feyenoord, who aren't exactly a European powerhouse. They were 3-0 up with 15 minutes to go, and they managed to blow it and draw 3-3. And we've just not seen this for Manchester City under Pep Guardiola. We've not seen it for Manchester City in the last 15 years or so. It's extraordinary. And it was interesting because he said that if I hadn't had so much success in recent years, he's been there since 2016, signed a new contract last week, of course. If he hadn't won so many trophies and had so much credit in the bank, as we call it in football, he'd be out on his ear. And I'll tell you what, with 5 defeats in a row, blowing a lead like that in the Champions League against Feyenoord and going to Liverpool tomorrow, where there is a situation tomorrow, Stephen, where if results go their way, Liverpool could be 11 points clear at the top of the Premier League with a third of the season gone. And so we'll look ahead to that tomorrow, as I said. But last night, Brighton made history. They only drew 1-1 with Southampton. I mean, another VAR controversy, but they went second in the Premier League for the first time in their history. Brighton and Hove Albion are just not a side historically that we've associated with success in football. They got to an FA Cup final in 1983. We didn't hear about them for the next 35 years, and then suddenly they now find themselves in second in the Premier League, owing to the fact that they run very well. But Southampton forced to draw last night. As I say, Liverpool, Man City tomorrow at Anfield. West Ham take on Arsenal today, and we've got Ruvan Nistelrooy is not going to be in charge today for Leicester at Brentford, but he has been appointed the Leicester manager.
Lovely stuff. All right, Aidan, thank you very much indeed. Just very quickly, someone said Isambard Kingdom Brunel for Great Britain.
Oh, he was pretty good engineer.
Darren McElroy says, what about Simon Weston?
Oh,
great
absolutely.
Simon. Yeah, there's a lot of great candidates out there. Right, still to come, we're going to go through the papers with Emma and Kevin. That's next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
My next guest knew George Carman rather intimately. Indeed, he immediately asked her for her hand in marriage when they first met. Karen Phillips knew Carman from 1986 and was a close friend until his death in 2001. Karen has used court transcripts and personal documents to construct her new book, Get Carman. There it is. And here you are. Karen, thank you very much indeed. So you knew him very well, and actually he began to write a little bit of an autobiography just in the weeks before his death. And from those pages, I was struck by the amount of uncertainty that there was about the man. This man who was so confident in court, who charmed juries so famously, but in some ways felt that he was an actor, in some ways felt that he was fighting back nerves and uncertainties. Is that true?
I think he was quite worried about every case. It was much more that he was concerned for the client. He always wanted to do his best. He worked so hard to win a case, not really for his personal satisfaction, but because he didn't want to let people down.
His success rate was extraordinary, and, you know, I'll choose my words carefully here, but shall we say that many people were surprised at the time that Jeremy Thorpe was found not guilty. It was astonishing in the case of Jonathan Aitken, for example, that the principal charge against him, which was that he'd been corrupt in arms dealings, I don't think that was ever actually reached during the court. It seems even more surprising today that people who were employed by Mohammed Fayed were believed in the case of Neil Hamilton. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, his results are extraordinary.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's go through the papers at 7:47 with Emma Wolfe and Kevin Schofield. Can we have a look, Kevin, at the Telegraph? Trade unions not happy with Keir Starmer.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah, so obviously Louise Haig had to resign yesterday. I think she was probably made to resign, strongly encouraged to resign, certainly by Number 10 when this story broke. Now, the suggestion in the Telegraph is that this was all a plot by a chap by the name of Morgan McSweeney. Some of your viewers may have heard of. He is now Chief of Staff for...
Oh, yes, after Sue Gray left.
Sue Gray, yeah. Now, the suggestion is that he, obviously being aware of what she'd done, Louise Haig had done 10 years ago, planted it with a journalist, and it came to fruition this week, and lo and behold, she's been ousted because she was seen as being too left-wing. Now, that is the conspiracy theory. That's certainly been pushed by trade unions and the left.
Would there be any truth in that? I mean, the story had to come from somewhere.
It did have to come from somewhere, and I would dearly love to know where from. Now, I've been asking one or two people this morning in the Labour Party what they make of this, and well, I can't really repeat what some of them have said about it, but they're pouring cold water on it, shall we say. They say it's not true, that this was a put-up job to try and get her out, because they're making the point that if Keir Starmer didn't like her or thought she was too left-wing, he wouldn't have put her in the cabinet in the first place, which I guess is a persuasive argument. But there's undoubtedly a strong suspicion that it was a political hit job. And if you look at the letter that Keir Starmer wrote to her in response to her resignation letter, it was very terse, very short, very unusual. Actually, Prime Ministers usually lavish praise on ministers who are resigning. No matter what they've done, they always find something good to say about them. But this was very short, and a lot of people reading into that...
It was short, wasn't it?
It was noticeably terse. Although he did say in it, I'm sure you've got a great contribution to make in the future, so I wouldn't be surprised to see her come back to it.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't so damaging, was it?
No.
It wasn't the worst crime ever. It was a conviction. But there's also suggestions in the papers that this did come out, that this was leaked during the election, but the Conservatives didn't really have enough detail or evidence to stand it up.
Yeah,
that's right. It didn't come out then.
Yeah.
It's just interesting, the Morgan McSweeney thing, how he won his power battle with Sue Gray, and now
he appears to be...
seems to be...
He's seen as the sort of Prince of Darkness.
And it does raise questions about Starmer, again, about his authority and about his sort of judgment.
Well, he knew about this in 2020. When he made her shadow Northern Ireland Secretary back then, she told him about this conviction, so he did know about it. But I think there was more to come out in this story, and the decision was taken. Look, just get her out, and then it's someone else's problem. She's not damaging the government if she's on the back benches, because there's something that doesn't quite add up about her story, I think.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Well, yeah, I think it's how it doesn't smell right, does it?
There's a very naughty cartoon in the bottom of the Telegraph. Have you seen it, Kevin?
Yeah.
The Mac cartoon.
The Mac cartoon at the bottom, where there's a policeman going up to the door of number 10. He says, the ex-Transport Secretary has reported that a ministerial car has been stolen from her.
Ouch.
Ouch. But that's clearly the way the gossip is going.
There are some funny memes online.
I can
with
imagine.
people opening their drawers and all your old mobiles, all your old Nokias.
Everything falls out.
Emma, let's have a look at the Daily Mail, should we? As we hurtle towards Christmas.
Yeah.
If you fancy a family day out?
This really is quite astonishing. Your full sort of festive family day out for a family of 4, say, could cost you up to 500 quid. So that includes, what does it include? It includes your Santa's Grotto, your Christmas lights display, your panto, drinks, snacks, merchandise, all of that kind of thing. Could be up to £500. Yeah, but by contrast, if you went to Prague for a weekend and did the Christmas market, same thing, family of 4, hotels, flights and everything included, could be £390. But I've got a friend who said she had a brilliant idea. What she does, she takes her kids on the top deck of a bus along Oxford Street.
Yeah.
With a flask of hot chocolate and mince pies. And what a brilliant... I mean, that's probably a £5.
Yeah.
On a bus, up and down
the lights
Oxford
are amazing.
Street.
I saw them last night. Yeah, they are.
Really lovely.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way to do it. Mind you, some of these, I don't know what it costs. Well, I mean, they're saying Bristol, for example, £308.
Yeah,
It's still a lot of money, but, you need to get... I don't know what it costs in Barrow, in fairness, to go to Santa's Grotto. Not that much, I shouldn't think. But everything does cost.
It does, yeah. And this is the time of year when they really cash in, because they know that kids absolutely love it. and parents are under a lot of pressure to keep the kids happy and will pay through the nose.
Yeah, and they're
I'm not sure I'd pay that much right enough.
Well, they're talking about, and you're right, it's London prices, of
Yeah,
course, inflate everything. But when you do think about, I don't know, a German Christmas market or a Prague Christmas market, they're wonderful.
They are.
You can actually get away. Often you can get away, although I'm sure you'd spend more once you're out there. But the thing they're talking about is parents, this obsession with creating magical memories, trying to create the perfect Christmas for their children.
Yeah.
Which I think our parents just let us get on with it. You know, they did it. I mean, and this is before you start on presents and all of that, Stephen. So I think it's, you know, it all adds up a lot.
Yeah. And it's worrying if you're already feeling the pinch.
I did take my dad on a virtual reality sleigh ride. Just because they had one in the centre near me in my town.
All right.
I said, oh, come on. He's just recovering from an operation. He's 79. Let's get on this. No, I'm not going on.
No.
Come on.
Virtual reality. Did you put on a
the
headset?
goggles and all the rest of it.
see.
It was, and that was £6 each.
Yeah.
For,
was it good?
For 5 minutes. It was good, but I spent the entire time with my dad going like this. It went downhill or whatever. It was very good, though.
They're incredibly realistic.
Yeah, they
VR
really are,
headsets.
aren't they?
That'd be great for a little one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was designed for children. It was me and my dad sat on it. We're the only two on it. But there you go.
And other people can see you and you're waving around doing you look like you're doing nothing.
You've just got to have no shame at all in these things, have you? But I love doing stuff like that as I get older. Stuff like that, and going on the merry-go-rounds and all that stuff. You just think,
why not?
Why not?
If anyone wants to laugh at me,
Yes.
I don't
it's
care.
such fun. Yeah. It's brilliant.
I'm beyond caring. Just say what you like. Michael's been in touch saying Stephen Wilberforce was born in Kingston upon Hull, not Hull. Hull is the river that runs through the city. Yes, that's true. But if you meet anyone who lives in Hull, they call it Hull.
I didn't know the river was called Hull.
Yeah, the River Hull.
I did not know that.
Anyway, look, we're out of time. We'll see you later. Here's the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times, but it is going to feel a lot milder, particularly compared to the chilly week that we've had. So quite a cloudy and grey start across much of the country, and it's probably going to be sticking like that through much of the day. The best of the sunshine just to the northeast of any hills, perhaps across Scotland or northern England. We're also going to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, this mainly across western areas, perhaps lingering across northern parts of Scotland too. And it's going to be quite blustery at times around coasts. But for many of us, a mild day on offer, highs of around 13 or 14 Celsius. So to finish the day on Saturday, we're going to continue to see fairly similar conditions. Still plenty of cloud across Scotland, perhaps some longer spells of rain across the Northern Isles, and still drips and jabs of rain and drizzle around hilly areas, still quite blustery around coasts too. Fairly cloudy across Northern Ireland with some longer spells of rain, this heavy at times just starting to creep into the west, and plenty of rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, southwest England. Driest of the weather across central and southeastern England, but still plenty of cloud here. And then through the course of the night, we'll see those longer spells of rain slowly creep their way eastwards across the country. This is going to be turning heavy at times, particularly to start off Sunday morning, and particularly in the west, and then moving across parts of Scotland with plenty of blustery showers behind. Once again, the driest of the weather across the very far southeast. And it's a very mild night on offer too. Some places not really dropping temperatures too much compared to what they were in the day. Now through into Sunday, once again, we'll continue to see that rain sweeping its way eastward. It's most likely that most of us will see some rain at some point on Sunday, and plenty of blustery showers across the far northwest of the country too, and still fairly breezy around coastal areas. But on the whole, it's going to be another mild day on offer, highs once again around 13 to 14 degrees. That's it from me then. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be
Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now we're joined now by Sophia Viraji, the co-founder of the Azealia Foundation, which was created due to the tragic passing of her 8-month-old daughter to leukemia. The foundation is doing some incredible work for children's cancer.
Yeah, some really incredible stuff. They've just launched a PhD even where they're funding young doctors to specialise in childhood cancer as, get this, I wasn't aware of this, it's one of the most underfunded areas in the NHS. So not many sectors choose to go down that route, unfortunately. The charity, the foundation, have donated over £1 million worth of equipment to hospitals as well, and we're delighted to welcome Sophia. You've turned a tragedy and grief into triumph, I guess, and something so inspiring. Just tell us about that. Do you recognise that in yourself and the work you're doing?
Yeah, I'm here to always honour my daughter and to always continue her name, her legacy, and to support all of these other children fighting against childhood cancer.
It was all over social media. I mean, you were, at one point, probably one of the most famous families in this country because of Azealia and Azalia's fight. When you look back now at that time, does it give you comfort that you had so many people behind you?
Absolutely. The community that we have got, the humanity that we've seen in the UK and all around the world, in fact, has really touched my heart. And that kindness, love and support has always been the backbone of carrying me through this, to give me hope, to give me belief. And it still inspires me and encourages me till today to continue to do that, to show that light, to show that courage and bravery.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. The assisted dying bill is backed by MPs.
The Prime Minister was amongst those who supported the vote after an emotional debate.
However, those opposed promised to redouble efforts to try to persuade MPs to change their mind as they move on to months of detailed scrutiny.
President Zelensky says he is willing to cede some territory to Russia to end the war, and that's the first time he's said that ever, really, and it would all be in exchange for the protection of what he called a NATO umbrella.
Penny Lancaster hits out at Greg Wallace, saying she's prepared to go to the authorities over his behaviour after the MasterChef host stepped down following allegations of inappropriate comments.
And today marks 150 years since the birth of Winston Churchill. We'll be looking back at his life and what made him Britain's most famous.
Happy St Andrew's Day. Our reporter Tony Maguire is going to be in St Andrews, where the Scottish patron saint is being celebrated.
Harry Brooks' mesmerising batting performance has left England on the verge of an impressive first Test victory against New Zealand in Christchurch. In tennis, Novak Djokovic says hiring Andy Murray as his new coach is exciting, and we'll look ahead to a bumper weekend of Premier League action.
Hello there, good morning. It's going to be quite a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times. Mild though, and plenty of dry weather today. I'll be here with all the details.
Just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Loads of people getting in touch on the idea of a greatest Britain. Look, I mean, Margaret Thatcher has been listed. Well, she was a hugely popular Prime Minister, wasn't she? Hugely successful. But so many different people getting... And we're asking in our poll of the day today, is Winston Churchill the greatest Britain? And perhaps that question should have been rephrased to one of the greatest Britons, or put a list of people up there, because actually there's a lot to choose from when you look back.
He still wins out when they hold this poll every so often.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised.
No, all in all. But I wonder if he will continue to be in years to come. I mean, our Gen Z are the generations more likely to vote for somebody else, to think of somebody else?
This whole people are getting in touch over that Gen. It is known as Gen Z. People are saying it should be Gen Z.
No, it's known as Gen Z is the way you speak it, isn't it? It's the way you say it.
It's a bit like the website TMZ in the States, which is just, you say TMZ and it just doesn't work.
It's not what it's known as.
Yeah, but I know what you mean.
What way is...
Hello.
Sorry, I was just thinking of the tennis. Novak Djokovic says hiring Andy Murray as his coach is going to be exciting. But it may be exciting for him, but we're not going to see it, are we?
No, but we might see the results on court. I mean, Novak Djokovic clearly thinks he can win more Grand Slams. He said his body's holding up well. Also, and he likes big names in his corner. He's had Andre Agassi as his coach. He's had Boris Becker as his coach. He's had Goran Ivanisevic as his coach. So I think he likes that little bit of that star quality, that somebody's been right to the net, right to the edge, and won Grand Slams when it really matters. And Andy Murray, although he wasn't quite as successful as Djokovic, Nadal or Federer, he certainly won multiple Grand Slams.
OK, here's a question for you then, because I was just checking how old they were. They're both 37, Djokovic and Andy Murray. Which one is 1 week older than the other?
They were junior rivals, you know.
Yes,
I'm going to
right.
go Djokovic is a week older.
Yeah, I would have said that. Is that right?
No, Andy is a week older. Andy's a week older. So he can be the coach. Yeah. He has a week's authority over Djokovic. There you are.
Just as well.
But it will be interesting to see if it makes a big difference.
I'm getting slammed.
Oh, why?
by
What have you said
people
now?
Because I'm being accused of being woke.
Oh.
Just because I don't go out. You know, I don't go out night clubbing and things. I did in my younger days. I just don't want to do it now.
Well, what does your night out look like?
Well, I'm sort of in bed by 9:30.
No. What did it look like back in the day?
Well, back in the day...
Were you a Hellraiser?
You'd go for pre-drinks at about 11, when you go around to someone's house and you'd all work your way through a bottle of vodka, and then you go to the club till 3 or 4 in the morning, and then you spend all day Saturday recovering, and then do it all again.
Pre-drinks now starts about 5 p.m.
Well, probably.
That's what they're saying about Gen Z, is they're more likely to go out for lunch and then be back home by 3.
Martin Watson says the younger generation are a joke. Well, I'm not part of that generation. David Hughes says, Mr. Woke Dixon in bed by 9 at the age of 50. I'm 76, worked hard all my life, go out at the weekends, Sunday lunch up the pub, and I like a Sunday lunch up the pub. These boring young people are frightened of their own shadow. Get a life, kids. We used to say, live dangerous, die young, be a good-looking corpse.
Oh, no.
But you're 76, David, so you don't want to be a good-looking corpse, do you?
You've survived well.
You've survived.
Yeah.
Be thankful that you've lived all these years.
What's so wrong with enjoying just being at home and kicking...
I did it when I was young.
Feet up, watch the telly.
I don't want... And maybe when I'm 76 and retired...
Then you'll rediscover nightlife.
Then I will go out and my body clock won't be set to getting up at 3 in the morning and all the rest of it. But at the minute, as someone like slap bang in the middle of my career, you sort of go... I haven't got time for anything else. I haven't got the energy for anything else. I don't want to be going out.
Maybe you'll regain the energy. Maureen Lipman's done a big interview in one of the papers. I'll find it for you a bit later, because I can't remember quite how old she is, but she's discovered new love.
Oh, I see.
And she said it's really invigorating at her age. Yeah. There you go.
I mean, my parents are like teenagers. They're late 70s. And, I mean, they go out and if they go out for lunch, they're out for about 8 hours.
Wow.
You know, it's all... And they're much more like the teenagers now, and me and my brother are like the parents.
You're not.
So pre-drinks for you now.
You are really not woke.
Pre-drinks for you now is cocoa or hot milk, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, it's terrible, isn't it? But yeah, criticised because I don't want to go out on the lash every night. That's the way of it. Been there, done that.
Yeah,
like
absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Right, let's move on to the big political... upset, well, certainly an upset to some, that happened yesterday in the House of Commons, and that was the vote on assisted dying, which, of course, brings the whole concept of assisted dying one step closer to becoming legal in England and Wales, because MPs backed the bill in an historic vote.
But it followed 4.5 hours of debate, 330 MPs voting in favour, 275 opposing it.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, was one of the key people who voted in favour, alongside the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves.
The legislation would mean terminally ill adults with 6 months left to live would be able to request assistance in ending their life.
Well, former political editor at LBC, Theo Usherwood, joins us now. And obviously you've had your ear very close to the ground throughout.
Yes.
Were you surprised at yesterday's vote?
No, I wasn't surprised with yesterday's result. I think it was we were pretty clear looking at the numbers, given the feeling from speaking to MPs that this was going to pass that second reading. The only thing that perhaps could have stopped it was, given it was a private members' bill, there could have been attempts by those opposed to it to try and talk the legislation out at yesterday afternoon. But in the end, they didn't try to do that. The opponents of the legislation, there was an actual vote in the House of Commons, and it passed by a majority. It might have been, if anything, we thought it might have been a little bit tighter, but no, it wasn't a surprise. And the question now is, the government has said it wants to remain neutral in this process, but it's going to go into committee stage, and that's the point at which officials from the NHS and the Department for Health and Social Care are going to become involved, and they're going to actually look at the finite detail of what needs to happen, how it needs to happen. And I think, given the split in the Cabinet, when you look at the fact that the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has opposed the legislation, the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, opposed the legislation.
Angela Rayner opposed, didn't she?
Angela Rayner opposed. But the reason I highlight Wes Streeting is he's going to be the Secretary of State responsible for delivering this. Shabana Mahmood is going to be the Secretary of State responsible for the Ministry of Justice when we have cases further down the line where there's an allegation of coercion. These are key posts, and they're going to be crucial in bringing forward this, in delivering this legislation and making sure that it works.
But the committee stage now is going to have to quite literally go through this legislation line by line, isn't it? And even before sort of amendments get put into place and all the rest of it. So, I mean, that level of scrutiny, there was concern that perhaps there wasn't enough scrutiny even up until the second reading yesterday. But it really is now going to have to be looked at in minute detail.
Yes, and they're going to have to start to take advice from the experts in the NHS. And I say experts in a broader sense, not necessarily those who are in favour of this legislation, but also those who have concerns about it, to ensure that it cannot be abused, that we cannot have people coercing loved ones into ending their own lives, or feel that they feel pressure that they don't want to put a burden on an NHS because they're taking up a bed or whatever. And of course, after this, it will go to the House of Lords, and it can expect further scrutiny there. But
that's unusual, isn't it? Because the House of Lords normally don't interfere on private.
I think that will probably. I think you're quite right, Stephen. They won't interfere, but I think that they will want to, look at this legislation and see whether there are any problems that they could perhaps improve it. But ultimately, I think they're going to have to accept, when you look at the polling when it comes to assisted dying, nearly 2/3 of people, going by the latest polls, are in favour of introducing such legislation. When you look at the fact that the Commons has voted in favour of assisted dying now at second reading, the principle of the idea, I think the Lords would find it very difficult to suddenly come in and say, well, we need to rip it up here and we need to make changes there. So I think we're looking, in terms of a time frame, this legislation probably is going to receive royal assent and then come into law during the second half of next year.
And surely people who are really quite worried by this move and would oppose the bill if they were given a vote, they could take some comfort, can't they, from the fact that both the Health Secretary and the Justice Secretary were fundamentally against it, because it means that they are going to scrutinise it even more diligently.
Yes, I think you're right with that, Anne. I think there are two ways of looking at this. There's a way of saying, well, there's a divide within Keir Starmer's cabinet, and you've got two ministers who aren't signed up to the legislation, and how can he possibly, how can Starmer, say that he remains neutral and the government remains neutral over this? Or I think you could take your point of view as actually you've got two senior ministers there, especially with Wes Streeting, experienced as a government minister and as a shadow, and he's running the health brief in terms of in the shadow cabinet as well. And Shabana Mahmood, equally experienced as Lord Chancellor. I think they can bring a really critical eye to this legislation to make sure, and rather than having a minister come in who's all for it, let's plough ahead with this,
yes,
let's do this, let's do that. That would be more worrying, wouldn't it? Yes, I think you're quite right to point that out, and I think that's probably the right way to look at it, that actually having two ministers in crucial posts who voted against the legislation, they're not going to be able to stop it, but they will be able, I think, to offer a really critical eye to make sure that it is in the best possible shape by the time it comes to third reading in the House of Commons and ultimately royal assent.
Lovely. Theo, thank you. I just find it's fascinating when you have these free votes on these sort of issues, how parties split. Interestingly, even Nigel Farage voted against it. Richard Tice, his deputy, voted for it.
Did he indeed? Yeah. Did either of them speak?
I don't know.
Richard Tice did.
He did he? I missed it. But Farage didn't.
I can't remember, but
No,
I know.
it was a long session. I wasn't sure whether I'd missed them, but
yeah, but I know Richard Tice did.
But it's fascinating. But in a way, that's what power politics should work, really, rather than just being whipped down party lines.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you've got a view on that, I'm sure you have. gbnews.com/yoursay.
It's just coming up to 13 minutes past 8. Now, in an interview last night, President Zelensky suggested that he is prepared to end the war in return for NATO membership, even if Russia doesn't immediately return seized land.
Yes, Zelensky's proposal would signal an end to Ukraine's attempt to win back by force those territories that have been seized by Moscow.
Earlier, we spoke to former British Army spokesperson Major Mike Shearer.
Yeah, I must admit, I was shocked to hear this morning, but I suspect that he is taking a much more strategic view of how this war may end going forward. It's much easier to give a definitive when it's not. So he can say yes right now, join NATO, play the long game, and then see what happens within the fullness of time. I think he's just taking a fairly pragmatic and strategic view of how it may well pan out. You give a little bit away today and you take a lot back tomorrow. I mean, the honest truth is, who knows? But I suspect that what you've just intimated there is right. He's given them he's given the dog a bone, if you like, to see how we can stop it as it is, knowing fine well that if he gets himself into the NATO club, that and there's insurrection coming from within to Russia, that they may well be able to claw it back at a later time. From where I'm sat, I could argue that you do not wish to reward failure. And you would be rewarding failure if you were to say, OK, you can have the Donbass if you want, you can have the Crimea if you want, and we'll leave it there. The problem is that no one ever speaks about is that any NATO country can veto the joining of any other country.
I'll tell you what's interesting. Someone messaged in earlier about that. Why would Russia want to settle anything at all if what is left of Ukraine becomes NATO?
Yes.
Because that is taking NATO
that is
right to the Russia.
absolutely what Putin doesn't want. That is absolutely it.
And would that just be absolutely provocative to him to say, well, OK, I'll stand back now, but then give it another 5 years?
The only thing is, but of course, Zelensky made the point in that interview that Putin doesn't care. Was his view. Putin doesn't care about the Russian lives being lost. But the toll is something up to 2,000 deaths a day now in the Russian army. And they are apparently recruiting Yemeni.
Are they recruiting
Yemeni people to fight for Russia?
And they've got North Koreans there already, 10,000 of them.
That's what they're saying. But and I guess at some point does Putin have to take that into consideration? Zelensky says no, he doesn't care about lives lost. But in the end, he also cares about staying in power. Yeah. So I don't know.
It's a mess. It was interesting. It will be very interesting to see what happens over the coming months in the run-up to January the 20th, which, of course, is when Donald Trump is back in the White House, and it is going to have an impact. It just is. Right, Black Friday is over because it's Saturday, but Black Friday weekend has just begun.
Well, doesn't it go on for days and days and days? Anyway, with the festive season starting to kick into gear, what deals can we snag this weekend? I'm very surprised you haven't been snagging already.
No, I haven't really. Financial expert Jasmine Birtles joins us now. Morning to you, Jasmine.
Good morning. Hello.
Are the deals as good this weekend as they were yesterday?
Well, yes, you know, it is, as you say, it's not really a day anymore. It's like Christmas. It's a whole weekend. It's a whole season. In fact, I don't know about you, but I've seen on the high street shops saying, you know, the Black Friday season or Black Friday week. It's getting bigger and bigger. And certainly journalists like me, we get press releases about a month or so beforehand going, oh, Black Friday is coming. It is equal now, really, to Christmas, I would say. And understandably, because incredibly, you know, I mean, we do have a cost of living crisis, but incredibly, sales yesterday were up 12% on sales last Black Friday. So again, like Christmas, even though we have a cost of living crisis, a lot of people are struggling day to day. When it comes to Black Friday, when it comes to Christmas, each year we spend more, which honestly I find incredible.
Well, we all find ourselves being tempted and being sort of sucked into the whole process. I nearly bought a Hoover yesterday, and I absolutely don't need to. I just was so impressed with the money off. I managed to stop myself. But, I mean, are there particular things being sold on particular days, particular bargains, or is it just, in the end, we all give in to our weakness somewhere along the line?
Well, yes, as you say, you know, there are different shoppers, different styles of shopping, and as you say, there are some good-looking deals. The problem is that many of them really aren't. And what happens, and Which magazine is very good on this, and Price Spy is worth having a look at. But there are a number of retailers that put the prices up, you know, a couple of weeks ago, and then bring them down from that inflated level. So I think, you know, honestly, the only way that you can be sure of getting a bargain is to do what, I just polish my halo, what I did yesterday, which was there's a particular foundation that I like to buy, and I know how much it is. It's jolly expensive, you know, at normal prices. And so I was waiting for Black Friday to see how much, and it was 25% off. And I know, thank you. Yes, I've absolutely good for me.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that. No, but I was going to say that's the point, isn't it? Rather than sort of scouring the Black Friday deals, saying, "Oh, I wonder what I can buy," you need to have your list ready beforehand. Say, "This is what I want to buy towards the end of the year for Christmas," and then you know what it is costing 2 or 3 months ago. Exactly, and that's the thing. 2 or 3 months ago, you know, that tragically, you know, you've got to do it. It's a science almost. You know, the shopping in Black Friday. You have to know months in advance how much that thing really is in order to know if it's a good deal when it comes to Black Friday. And that, you know, who does that? I mean, okay, quite a lot of us will do it about specific things. I have a friend who only buys her tech things at Black Friday, and again, she knows how much they were before, and she does get good deals. You know, there are good deals around. I mean, 25% off, you know, I think that's a decent chunk off.
Yes, there are one or two things that seem to be very good at the moment.
Yeah.
The sort of things that would appeal to you, I think.
Oh, yeah, well, I know I love a bit of my tech, Jasmine. I mean, if your friend wants to send any suggestions, right? But it's then I'm back to the issue, like you with your Hoover, is that you end up buying stuff you don't actually
don't need it. No.
Exactly, and this is the thing with sales. You know, it's all the psychology of it. Interestingly, not surprisingly, there hasn't been quite so much footfall on the high street, but online, people are just, you know, like gannets, getting all the deals supposedly. But as you say, you know, there's the psychology of it, and online, a lot of companies know how to make you feel, oh, this is a bargain. I've got to get it. I've got to get it now. They give you this sense of urgency, of rarity. You know, if you don't get it now, it's all going to go, and they do that. So we have to be even cleverer. We have to be saying, right now, I'm going to switch the laptop off. I'm not going to look at it now. What was it that's on my list? I'll only go for what's on my list.
Oh, yeah, it's discipline. Discipline.
Some hope.
Yeah. All right, Jasmine, really good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Right. Do you remember when we as a nation used to go absolutely crackers in the New Year sales, the January sales? Yeah. People used to queue for days. Yeah. That doesn't happen anymore,
it's all gone. I have to say,
that.
My town centre was busy. I had to pop into town yesterday, and it was busy. It was busy, which which is good to see.
Good for the shops.
It's good to see. It's good for the economy.
But the reason I'm obsessive about Hoovers is because I believe somewhere in there, stupidly, that if I buy a really glitzy enough Hoover that really, is amazing in all sorts of ways, then I will suddenly have a cleaner house.
Oh no, you've got to use it.
It doesn't work. You've got to use it.
No, unless you get one of them.
You've got to put in the elbow work.
Unless you get one of those robotic ones.
Well, I've had one of those too.
Oh.
Yeah, but I had an early one of those when they weren't that good.
No,
I gather they're much better now.
Some really good ones now, apparently. So there you go.
Now you've given me an idea.
All right, we're going to be back after the weather with Onno, by which point Anne will be several £100s poorer.
Yes.
See you in a sec.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times, but it is going to feel a lot milder, particularly compared to the chilly week that we've had. So quite a cloudy and grey start across much of the country, and it's probably going to be sticking like that through much of the day. The best of the sunshine just to the northeast of any hills, perhaps across Scotland or northern England. We're also going to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, this mainly across western areas, perhaps lingering across northern parts of Scotland too. And it's going to be quite blustery at times around coasts. But for many of us, a mild day on offer, highs of around 13 or 14 Celsius. So to finish the day on Saturday, we're going to continue to see fairly similar conditions. Still plenty of cloud across Scotland, perhaps some longer spells of rain across the Northern Isles, and still drips and jabs of rain and drizzle around hilly areas, still quite blustery around coasts too. Fairly cloudy across Northern Ireland with some longer spells of rain, this heavy at times just starting to creep into the west, and plenty of rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, southwest England. Driest of the weather across central and southeastern England, but still plenty of cloud here. And then through the course of the night, we'll see those longer spells of rain slowly creep their way eastwards across the country. This is going to be turning heavy at times, particularly to start off Sunday morning, and particularly in the west and then moving across parts of Scotland with plenty of blustery showers behind. Once again, the driest of the weather across the very far southeast. And it's a very mild night on offer too. Some places not really dropping temperatures too much compared to what they were in the day. Now through into Sunday, once again, we'll continue to see that rain sweeping its way eastward. It's most likely that most of us will see some rain at some point on Sunday, and plenty of blustery showers across the far northwest of the country too, and still fairly breezy around coastal areas. But on the whole, it's going to be another mild day on offer, highs once again around 13 to 14 degrees. That's it from me then. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, that weather was only on for 2 minutes and she spent £799.
No, I've not, but it is $799.
But it's half price.
But it's half price. And it does everything.
It's a lot of money.
If only it did the washing up as well. It doesn't do that.
Does look very good, though.
And they've made such a cute video of it. It looks as though it actually flies. We don't think it actually flies.
No, I don't think
around
it
the
flies.
house, but it does look very good. Don't have that sort of money, I'm afraid.
All right.
I tell you what, I could buy it, though, if I won, but I'm not allowed to take part in the Great British Giveaway. £50,000 you could win in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away. It could be yours. Here's how.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British Giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash 2025.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The BBC has been branded jaw-achingly stupid, not by me, by the way, over its decision to cast black and ethnic minority actors in the historical drama of Wolf Hall. Now, is this a forward-thinking idea or nonsense? Are we rewriting history? Henry, I mean, the Tudors were real-life people. They were pretty much white.
Well, some of these shows depart so much from historical context anyway that maybe it doesn't make any difference. But I think just generally we've got a problem in this country with portraying history in its correct sense. You can't change history. And I think it's about the motivation. If the motivation is to sort of to some sort of, you know, to make a political point, then I think it's wrong.
What I find kind of tedious about people finding this instant jaw-droppingly stupid, Jesus was portrayed by somebody who's half Slovak and half Irish. Moses was portrayed in the Exodus by an Englishman. So, you know, same with Anne Boleyn, you know, was portrayed by Natalie Portman, who is Jewish. So if this is the one thing that's getting people angry, then there's something deeper within that rage, because I think Hollywood's been doing that, where people...
When you say something deeper, do you think there is a hidden racism and people are complaining about this?
Well, I think for some, maybe yes. I can't speak for everybody because you know, this news dropped today. I don't know why they are thinking that it's egregious, but there absolutely must be some underlying racism if this is the only one that you're upset about.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
It's 8:30 now. Today would have been Winston Churchill's 150th birthday.
Do you remember in a big poll in 2002, he was voted as the greatest Briton? But for some, he is still a controversial figure.
So we're asking this morning, is he the greatest Briton? Let's talk to the director of the International Churchill Society, amongst many other things, Rafe Haydale-Mankoo, and historian Dr. Luke Blaxill. Good to see you both this morning. Rafe, can I start with you? Because, I mean, he was a controversial figure, wasn't he? He had many flaws to his character, but isn't that almost part of the appeal of the man who overcame a great deal to do what he did?
Yes, hi there. I should say I'm a former member of the Board of Directors of the International Churchill Society. I'm not the director. Yes, you're quite right. You know, had Churchill's career finished in 1940, many would have said a career of great promise that ended in failure. There are many reasons you can criticise him, tying Britain to the gold standard as Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Gallipoli-Dardanelles disaster in the First World War, his views on India, perhaps you could say. Indeed, you just have to look at some of the aspects of the Second World War, indeed the abdication crisis of Edward VIII. But there is no other instance in world history where the expression "cometh the hour, cometh the man" was more apt, because it's impossible to think, of another occasion when Europe and the free world, in fact, Western civilization itself, rested briefly on one man's shoulders. For 1 year, from the fall of France and Dunkirk, in May, June 1940, up until Operation Barbarossa, when Hitler invaded Russia in June 1941. For that single year, the fate of the world rested upon Britain's ability to stand up to Hitler. That was the darkest hour in world history, because if Hitler had defeated Britain, he could then have focused 100% of his forces against Russia. And as Stalin and Khrushchev said after the war, if it had been a single front war with all of Nazi Germany fighting it, it would have fallen. And then Nazi Germany and Japan would have controlled Europe, Russia, Africa, Asia, the Middle East oil fields. Nazi Germany would have been a superpower, bigger even than America. And in fact, it probably would have developed the atomic bomb before America did, because of the British tube alloy specialists. And the whole world would have been in a world where Nazi Germany would be free to enslave the peoples of the world, kill the Jews, enslave the Slavs. And it's thanks to Churchill that he kept the flame of freedom flickering bright. When we had almost no resources, we were just resisting. But just by doing that, it gave the world time to rearm and wait for the miracles of eventually America and Russia entering the war, which signed Hitler's death warrant. That's why the world owes Churchill a huge debt.
So, Luke, I mean, do you think he's just too flawed to be called the greatest Briton? Or is it that you can simply think of better people?
I think that it is the nature of a very long and complex political career like the one Churchill had that you will have flaws. I think the reason that Churchill is not the greatest Briton is really simply because 1 year of superb decisions and charismatic leadership, which has helped redefine and define Britain in the years that follow, is not sufficient in of itself. I mean, Churchill was a symbol of British greatness, but that's not the same as the greatest Briton. I mean, even the greatest prime ministers, I think we can think of several others. William Pitt restructured national debt, rearmed for the Napoleonic War, abolished the slave trade. Gladstone, champion of democracy, creation of meritocracy, mass school building, initiated free trade that helped Britain become a superpower that later eras were built on. Robert Peel, creating the Metropolitan Police Force, abolishing the Corn Laws to relieve starvation. Clement Attlee, creating the welfare state, nationalisation, reconstruction. We could also talk about David Lloyd George as well. So I think the point there would be that those peacetime leaders really built the Britain that Churchill defended. And I think their own legacies are more enduring and more substantial, even though, of course, we always have a very special debt to Winston Churchill because of his wartime leadership. I'm not sure that alone is enough, even leading the nation at its darkest hour, compared to some of those other peacetime leaders I mentioned.
Well, just very briefly, Rafe, because we're almost out of time. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Coming from Luke, in that, you know, whatever, you might disagree, but at least there's a lot of competition, which is a good thing for Britain.
It's a great thing, but let's also not forget Churchill's foresight. This is a man who in the 1930s warned the world about Hitler when nobody would listen. He could have averted the Second World War. This was a man who warned about the rise of the Kaiser and the threat to peace in World War I. And this was the man who first let the scales fall from the eyes of the world about the real threat from Stalin and so the Soviet Union, coining that phrase, the Iron Curtain. He was a great man because he lived a life which was actually 5 lives. There are so many aspects to his leadership. He introduced the welfare state with Lloyd George in 1911. You know, the 8-hour workday for miners, unemployment insurance, job centres, even the minimum wage he implemented. It was a career that had its flaws, but above all, he stands like a titan, free from party politics, as one of the few men who strode the global stage as a great figure. That's why he's the one prime minister people around the world know and recognize. Greatness doesn't just come from accomplishments, it also comes from character and spirit and determination. And he is an iconic figure of Britain as Nelson or Elizabeth I.
He's certainly iconic, there's no doubt about that. Dr. Luke Blaxill, Rafe Haydale-Manku, good to see you both this morning. Thank you.
I think, as you said, it's fascinating that we have a debate where we can throw in so many wonderful names.
Yeah, isn't that just?
Brilliant. So, our poll of the day, we're asking you, is Sir Winston Churchill our greatest Briton? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure that you stay tuned because the final result will be announced later in Nana's show. For all our latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Up next, all the sport with Aidan.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
In 2020, after almost 80 years, Oxford University's Pitt Rivers Museum removed its famous collection of shrunken heads with sewn-up lips and eyes made by the South American Shuar and Ashwar people. How do museums decide what should be shown and what should be confined to storage? Can controversial exhibits be left on display with suitable contextualisation in captions? Who would want to be a curator facing such controversial questions? For a review, I'm delighted to be joined by journalist Eitan Smallman. Welcome to GB News. I think many people, when they hear that we're going to discuss museums or art galleries, think that it's going to be, that wokery question. But it strikes me, and I think it strikes you too, that this is not just about wokery at all. There are some really interesting ethical questions here. For example, let's start with this one, and there are several examples of it. Should we be displaying human bodies, the remains of human beings? Should we be displaying them in museums?
Absolutely. It's not just the usual suspects, young snowflakes, who are objecting to these things. There are just naturally cultural shifts, and people of all ages and all political persuasions may feel uneasy about displaying human remains of any kind, especially human remains that have been taken against the will of the communities or taken violently. Hilary Mantel led a campaign to remove a 7-foot 7-inch skeleton of Charles Byrne, known as the Irish Giant, from the Hunterian Museum. He had specifically said that he didn't want to be displayed and didn't want to be taken by anatomists, and yet was displayed for a couple of hundred years until a couple of years ago. He hasn't had the burial he requested, but he's no longer on public display.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, Aidan's here with all the sport. Morning to you, fine
morning
sir. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I think we should look at Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Yes.
Because, excuse me, they say you're never gone for long. You're certainly not in football if you're any good. And he did a reasonable job at Manchester United a few weeks ago. He did. You can tell by the way he dressed, and he prowled along that touchline, dressed in a nice outfit, a nice ensemble, dressed for the job you want. Now, it wasn't quite enough for him to get the Man United job, and he was ruthlessly dispensed with by Ruben Amorim. Nothing wrong with that, because you want to bring your own people in when you've always they've served you well with success, don't you? So, but look, that was 2-3 weeks ago, and it seems that the job he did caught the attention of another Premier League suitor. And he arrived at Leicester City yesterday, and he's not going to take charge today at Brentford. That's going to be Ben Dawson, who is the caretaker, so he'll take charge on December the 3rd against West Ham. I think that's in midweek. And this was interesting because he was asked, did he contact the previous manager, or one of the previous managers who he knew, Enzo Maresca, who's now at Chelsea, about just get some intel about the job? And he said, yes, I did. We discussed the club, the structures, the people that work there, the squad, the stadium, the fans, the town and the surroundings. And he said it was a fantastic conversation. Have you done that much diligence when you've taken a job before? I don't think I have.
It's a very good idea too, though, isn't it? Get to know the lie of the land completely.
Plus, it means he's going to have a real passion for it.
Yeah.
Oh, without doubt, without doubt. Look, I mean, these jobs are highly prestigious anyway in the Premier League and even in the top 2 divisions, and he's a big, big name. So when they do get a budget, and they don't have anything like the budget they had back in when they were winning the Premier League, although they did well on a shoestring even back then. But you would think that he was going to command respect in the dressing room. It's a different job to Man United, not quite the pressure, and if they finish just one place above the Premier League bottom 3 where they are now, that's a job well done, because that secures their funding for next season.
Well,
No, it's
Hopefully
quite
he-
something.
He cares that much, he'll put that much effort
You
in.
never know, yeah.
I admire the man,
Yeah,
I
I
do. Premier League, particularly Brighton Southampton yesterday.
Yes.
That was controversial.
Well, it was. I mean, look, Brighton, let's say they got a point. That meant they went second in the Premier League and for the first time in their history, the highest position they've ever had in the league. I mean, they've been going for over 100 years, so it's a real feather in their cap. But they regret not getting the win, of course. But they could have actually lost the game. A VAR controversy was, it dominated the last few minutes of the game, and it took 5 minutes before the referee or the assistant referee or the VAR referee, the video assistant referee, decided that the goal was going to be disallowed because a player who wasn't actually involved in the play, Stuart Armstrong, was deemed to be offside. And look, we're in the 6th season now of VAR, and it's still, Stephen, taking 5-6 minutes to reach a decision.
Yeah,
no wonder people are getting frustrated.
Yes, absolutely.
And the worst thing is that when you're inside, look, when you're watching on TV, you can actually see what the VAR is looking at. You can see, oh, look, this is the contentious
But they
issue
can't,
here.
can they?
You can't inside the stadium. I remember there was a game last season.
It must be so frustrating.
Well, it is. When I was in the ground last year at Tottenham against Chelsea, and everyone said what a fantastic, exciting game it was. Chelsea won 4-1, but it was littered with VAR interventions. And when I was in the stand, I just thought, you know, there were periods of the game, 5-6 minutes at a time, where nothing was happening. I mean, people were asking me where I was going on holiday.
Yeah.
You know, if I was lucky enough to have one. So, I mean, that for those inside the stadium, and there were 60,000 people in there. I mean, there were like 30-odd thousand in there last night down at the Amex. But it's not very good as a spectator sport for them, and it needs to be ironed out. And it just seems to me that the on-field decision, the referee are just thinking to himself, look, OK, I'm not going to take the risk that I've got this wrong. I'll abdicate the decision. I'll delegate the decision to somebody in Stockley Park 2 hours away.
Yeah, no, it's not right.
No, it's not.
Adrian, we've got to leave it there, sadly. I know, but thank you.
Back tomorrow.
But it's always a joy, even if it's short and sweet.
Oh, thank you.
Is.
Absolutely. But it's Papers next, isn't it, with Emma Wolf and Kevin Schofield, so don't go away.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
A pensioner has been sacked as one of Santa's helpers for sending anti-Labour social media posts. So it looks like Santa is going to have even more work to do this Christmas. And joining me now is the former Santa helper, Paul Cleary. Paul, marvellous. You've still got your old hat on there and your beard. Wonderful to see. But Paul, this story, pardon the pun, is absolutely crackers. Tell us what happened to you.
It's unbelievable, to tell you the truth. I've been accused of sending racist and or derogatory remarks on my Facebook page about the Labour government. I received a letter from the trust where I volunteered as Santa. The posts in question about Labour cancelling Christmas. I've upset the board, members and volunteers, and are deemed inappropriate. As you're aware, a lot of time and effort is put into organising the WAF Christmas Festival, which is done by a small group of dedicated volunteers.
They even banned you from making donations to the Montgomery Hall Food Bank, a local food bank. They said they didn't even want your food.
That's right. That's right. And then in the next breath, they're asking for Christmas donations.
Without going into any details, I understand that the post was about comparing Keir Starmer to an elf. Is that right? So was it an elf and safety issue?
It was an elf with Keir Starmer's face on it in front of number 10, but the 10 was the I and O in idiot.
Right. I mean, you know, it's not the kind of thing that Santa would normally say, but it's a free country, and for Santa got the sack.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
All right, time for the papers. It's 8:47 with Emma Wolfe and Kevin Schofield. Emma, apparently nearly half of us, 47%, want another election.
Yeah, well, we've just been talking about the online petition, haven't we? Which I just checked. It's nearly 3 million signatures. And I think there may be actually going to be a debate
there
on
is,
this.
there is.
In January.
Scheduled in January the 6th.
Oh, it's exciting. So, yeah, apparently half of voters want another election. Unsurprisingly...
Where's this come from?
This is a poll in the iPaper. But unsurprisingly, the support for a rerun of the general election is highest amongst Reform and Conservative voters. 81% of Reform voters and 77% of Conservative voters would like another general election. And obviously, support is lowest amongst Labour and Lib Dem voters, although a third of them would like another general election.
So a third of Labour voters at the last election want to rerun it.
And Lib Dem voters, say they would like to rerun it.
That is interesting. That is significant. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to dismiss... You see, well, all these people who want an election...
Who lost.
Well, they didn't vote Labour anyway in July, so what? But, yeah, if a third of people who did vote either Labour or Lib Dem, who you would think would be more sympathetic to the government, that's a big number.
It does highlight the dissatisfaction and the sort of underwhelming verdict on Labour's performance thus far, even amongst their own voters.
Yeah, I would agree
with that. Of
course,
course, they're not going to rerun the general election.
No.
But I do think this whole movement, I do think the petition... I mean, you can't ignore 3 million people. Well, you can ignore them, and they will ignore them, but it's a lot of people.
But it should rattle their cage.
Yes.
Enough to say, we've got another 4.5 years, we need to start changing a direction.
Yeah.
Is Kemi Badenoch capable of doing that with this sort of ammunition? I mean, will she make a meal of it or not?
I mean...
Have we been impressed
I think
by her so far?
The jury's
or not?
still out. But I've written a piece for this weekend, and I've spoken to Tories, and opinion split, shall we say, on how she's done so far. One school of thought is that she needs to be out there more, really taking it to the government. The other school of thought is, look, there's 4.5 years to go to the next election. There's plenty of time. Just, let the government shoot itself in the foot, and then just make sure you're a competent alternative come the next election.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wouldn't know how to play it, but I have to say, I mean, what do most people see? And if anything, it's PMQs.
Yeah.
I was going to say, she's been pretty impressive at PMQs.
She's good at PMQs.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, the jury's out on that one. It's
Really?
I think the first couple certainly were a bit...
I thought she was very good this week.
She was better.
But
definitely better.
In the sense that she really makes it seem as though the PM is not answering any questions.
Yeah, she was better, although I think she maybe slipped up by not calling him to resign, but suggesting he might want to resign. You think, well, hang on. Once you've done that, where else is there to go?
Yeah,
once
you've asked them to resign once,
Just
you
do it
can't
every week
again.
for the next 4.5 years.
Well, he did. He did it.
Exactly.
But
no harm.
You say she was good in PMQs, but who watches PMQs apart from journalists?
That's my
and
worry,
politicians?
yeah.
Well, it's clipped up though, isn't it? For the even the people who just watch stuff later on in the evening.
And
they're not watching it live.
The other point a lot of people make is, well, William Hague was brilliant at PMQs. Regularly bested Tony Blair.
Yeah.
And yet he got hammered in 2001. So, but the significance of PMQs, I think, is for the people behind you. That you put a spring in their step, give them a little bit of encouragement. Well, our leader's on top form, so that's quite good. So it does have its benefits. But you're right, in terms of... One other MP said to me, no one's going to remember what PMQs were like now come the next election. No one's going to be voting based on how Kemi did in 2024.
True.
But she's got to build up her...
But she does. That's not to give her a pass.
But you're right, it's more about what happens with the government, what can go wrong, what
Governments
more
tend
can
to
go
lose
wrong, 'cause
elections,
it hasn't been an easy 5 months at all
No,
for
it
them.
hasn't. Definitely not.
And it's more for them to keep
I think they realise that as well, that they need to up their game, without a doubt.
And maybe Starmer needs to spend a little bit more time in this country.
He has been abroad a lot.
He has been abroad a lot.
I mean, a
this
lot,
is a
most of
narrative
it,
in the
though...
papers. This isn't me. This is a narrative in the papers. Starmer's globetrotting divides Westminster.
But he has been, but he's not just been on jollies, has he? I mean, he has been on these.
I didn't say jollies.
These important.
I think a lot of it has been,
meetups.
I mean, they're pretty much unavoidable. Foreign travel.
He went to COP.
He did go to COP.
And then he went
No, that was a waste.
He didn't need to go to COP because not very many
But then he went
leaders
straight on
did.
to somewhere else as well, to another...
Well, he's been to the G20, he's been to CHOGM, which is the Commonwealth,
Yeah.
G7. He's been to America a couple of times, yeah, and he'll be going again to see Trump, I'm sure, at some point.
To give him his due, you'd be worried if he wasn't going to those sort of things. What are online sickfluencers?
Yeah, this is really weird. You know the benefit system, the PIP system and the disability, applying for disability benefits, it's sort of based on scoring points, and you have these interviews with your assessor and all of that. It now turns out there's a sort of generation of online TikTok and YouTubers who are giving coaching, basically, telling other people how to game the system, how to increase their scoring points, how to sort of maximise their benefits, how to get high scores in certain criteria, such as psychological distress, you know, just so they can maximise, as I say, their disability benefits. If you say you're suicidal, for example, you go straight to the top of the charts. And how you need to get into the top categories in order to maximise your benefits. It's really quite an insidious thing. I mean, we've got a real problem with disability benefits.
It isn't surprising that this is happening, though, is it?
Not surprising.
No.
Some people are telling others
not
how
when
to
it's kind of
maximise your
gamified
chances.
in this way. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's
the
pretty
cost
depressing, actually, that
It
there are
is
people
depressing.
doing that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's a major problem for the government because the bill has gone up and up and up and has soared since
nearly
COVID.
100 billion by the end of this decade, with
That's
nearly
just unsustainable, isn't it?
It's 3.3 million people already claiming disability
something's
benefits.
got to be done.
It is a massive problem.
And so that the people who actually are deserving of it get it and get
Oh,
what
totally,
they
absolutely. It should be there for people that deserve it, but
That's the
it shouldn't be people trying to game the system.
No.
Definitely not.
Right, we've got 1 minute left.
Oh,
Kevin.
shall we talk about this? Talking of social media and things.
Yeah.
TikTok sensation.
It's a lovely story. This is a 92-year-old man called Edwin Rayner, who was a singer in his youth. He gave up when his wife died of cancer 9 years ago. His grandchildren so he was given a gift voucher for a 2-hour session in a studio to make his own CD. He now goes back every week because he loves it so much. His grandchildren filmed it, put it on TikTok, and now he's got people like Michael Bublé, his label, asking him to do cover versions. So he's become a TikTok sensation.
And Disney have asked him to perform their hit songs for his legions of online fans.
Yeah.
So he's going down well with everybody.
He's got 450,000 followers on TikTok.
We'll see
and 150 on Instagram.
We'll see if we can find a clip of him doing
He's
just
a
this.
retired tropical fish dealer.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. It's a great story.
Yeah, we've got it. We'll play you a clip later on.
Yeah.
Of him. Good on him.
Yeah,
That's what I say.
Yeah.
Let's just
92, he's got a whole new career.
Yeah.
a fortune. Let's just hope he doesn't have to...
Just starting.
Well, anyway. Right, thank you very much indeed, you two. It's been a pleasure. Right, let's have a look at the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times, but it is going to feel a lot milder, particularly compared to the chilly week that we've had. So quite a cloudy and grey start across much of the country, and it's probably going to be sticking like that through much of the day. The best of the sunshine just to the northeast of any hills, perhaps across Scotland or northern England. We're also going to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, this mainly across western areas, perhaps lingering across northern parts of Scotland too. And it's going to be quite blustery at times around coasts. But for many of us, a mild day on offer, highs of around 13 or 14 Celsius. So to finish the day on Saturday, we're going to continue to see fairly similar conditions. Still plenty of cloud across Scotland, perhaps some longer spells of rain across the Northern Isles, and still drips and drabs of rain and drizzle around hilly areas, still quite blustery around coasts too. Fairly cloudy across Northern Ireland with some longer spells of rain, this heavy at times just starting to creep into the west, and plenty of rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, southwest England. Driest of the weather across central and southeastern England, but still plenty of cloud here. And then through the course of the night, we'll see those longer spells of rain slowly creep their way eastwards across the country. This is going to be turning heavy at times, particularly to start off Sunday morning, and particularly in the west and moving across parts of Scotland with plenty of blustery showers behind. Once again, the driest of the weather across the very far southeast. And it's a very mild night on offer too. Some places not really dropping temperatures too much compared to what they were in the day. Now through into Sunday, once again, we'll continue to see that rain sweeping its way eastward. It's most likely that most of us will see some rain at some point on Sunday, and plenty of blustery showers across the far northwest of the country too, and still fairly breezy around coastal areas. But on the whole, it's going to be another mild day on offer, highs once again around 13 to 14 degrees. That's it from me then. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on...
It's the
Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan from 8 p.m.
You know, whenever I want to have a laugh, I will fire up a Ricky Gervais special on Netflix. He's funny, isn't he? Very politically incorrect. I might watch a vintage episode of Fawlty Towers if it hasn't been cancelled. Or I could just read up on the latest musings from the Welsh Labour government. And this week they have waged war on the countryside, which is apparently unwelcoming to British people of colour. Well, it's true, isn't it? I mean, those racial checkpoints in the Wye Valley are completely unacceptable. And the snowy bits of Mount Snowdon scream white privilege. Can you believe this story? It's proof, if you needed it, that Welsh Labour are barking mad and talking a load of shih tzu.
I think what's so interesting about this, I mean, this is an absurd question. This is ridiculous. Obviously, dogs and the countryside are not inherently racist. I think this entire connection between what is effective cultural Marxism, in addition to what is effective socialism, that is at the heart of Welsh Labour and many other hard left groups in the United Kingdom.
I got to do a correction.
Go
because
on.
It's not Welsh Labour. It was one little thinky-tanky that did some research. I know it was taxpayer funded, but it was just a suggestion. Welsh Labour have not gone, yes, that's a good idea. This research, which I wholly agree is quite absurd, was done by interviewing the 4% ethnic minorities of Wales, and they came out with the fact that they don't feel welcome in green spaces because there are so many dogs, and that's how this was born. I mean, I don't know whether that makes it make any more sense.
And the fact that taxpayers are footing the bill for research like this is the real scandal. We had this earlier conversation about the National Health Service, where all of our money is going and being wasted, and it is also being wasted on absolute nonsense like this.
GB News, the People's Chat.
Good morning. The assisted dying bill is backed by MPs.
The Prime Minister was amongst those who supported the vote after what was a very emotional debate.
However, those opposed promised to redouble efforts to try to persuade MPs to change their mind as they move on to months of detailed scrutiny.
President Zelensky says he is willing to cede territory to Russia to end the war, in exchange, though, for the protection of what he calls a NATO umbrella.
Penny Lancaster hits out at Greg Wallace, saying she's prepared to go to the authorities over his behaviour after the MasterChef host stepped down following allegations of inappropriate comments.
And today marks 150 years since the birth of Winston Churchill. We'll be looking back at his life and what made him one of Britain's most famous figures.
Happy St Andrew's Day. This hour we'll be talking to our reporter Tony Maguire in St Andrews, where the Scottish patron saint is being celebrated.
Hello there, good morning. It's going to be quite a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times. Mild though, and plenty of dry weather today. I'll be here with all the details.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Now you probably know that I do enjoy a sing-song.
Yes, you
I
do.
like to have a bit of a sing-song, often in the breaks, sometimes even on air, which probably gets us in trouble, but I'm no Edwin Rayner, who we were talking about in the papers.
Yeah,
He's this 92-year-old.
He's 92, he's a retired tropical fish dealer, and he's become a singing sensation on TikTok.
Have a listen.
Islands in the stream, that is what we are. No one in between. How can we be wrong? What happened to those wonderful adventures? Imagine all the people. 'Cause I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be a 10. Is it my destiny to live and die a life of glory?
Oh,
He's got a lovely
good.
voice.
He's good. I can see why Disney apparently are very keen on him. They have paid him to perform some of their hit songs for his legions of online fans.
Michael Bublé has asked him to sing some of his songs and do some covers.
He's got a good voice.
It's warm and rich.
Yeah, it's old now, but he is 92. But you can tell that he must have had a very strong voice once upon a time.
Yeah, but an old voice is sometimes
it's
very
gentle.
comforting,
Yeah.
isn't it? I just love Edwin. That's
Well
beautiful.
done.
And
Yeah.
but apparently there's loads of merchandise to you and me, so you can buy T-shirts and all sorts of him, which is where they'll make a lot of money as well.
Isn't that lovely that TikTok, which you always think of as being a young person's thing, he's made it his, and he's 92. I love that.
So sweet. I bet someone will be trying to get him on the show later on.
I hope so.
He'll be on this weekend on GB News. I put money on it. Put money on it. They'll be scrabbling
You might want
out
too
there.
much money now. You're such a sensation.
I just think that's lovely. What a lovely, rich voice. Oh, I think that's smashing. 92.
Lovely. Yeah.
Right, well, good on Edwin at 92 and for making it that far, frankly. Lots of people don't. And it all ties in with this assisted dying bill and those people who know when the end is coming within 6 months. And if they fall into that category, unfortunately, then some assistance in dying is one step closer to becoming legal in England and Wales after MPs backed the bill in a historic vote yesterday.
Yeah, the vote came after 4.5 hours of debate, with 330 MPs voting in favour and 275 opposing it.
The Prime Minister backed it, as did the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. The Health Secretary, though, did not.
Yeah, interesting as well. Rishi Sunak voted for it too, which I sort of didn't expect somehow. Anyway, the legislation would mean that terminally ill adults with 6 months left to live are able, or will be able, if it all goes through, to request assistance in ending their life.
Let's talk to former political editor at LBC, Theo Usherwood, who's here. There will be changes, and perhaps some significant changes over the coming months as this is all scrutinised. But do you get the sense that, even despite all of that, this will go through?
Yes, we get the sense that this is going to pass into law. Probably during the second half of next year, it will receive royal assent, and then it will become available to individuals on the NHS. If you look at the vote yesterday, it was a vote on the principle of allowing assisted dying. There are still significant concerns, and you heard it from MPs in the House of Commons who said actually they were in favour of assisted dying, but they didn't necessarily think that this was the right legislation because it was a private member's bill brought by Kem Leadbeater. It wasn't so. It didn't have a green paper, which is a consultation document where you get the opinions, or indeed the white paper, where you get the opinions of experts. And I think now that the legislation is going to go into committee stage, it can be scrutinised properly, and those safeguards, those guardrails, there's the other expression that's used, to ensure that any new law cannot be abused, particularly around. You know, they're going to be looking at the issue of coercion, that you have an elderly relative who might feel the pressure. They might feel that pressure overtly, and you say, look, there's going to be a specific offence, by the way, for putting pressure on somebody to end their own life early. But also they might feel that pressure sort of implicitly that, they might have a loved one who has to give up a job or you know, spend time looking after them, and they might feel, well, actually, is this something that they might...
But that's the issue, isn't it? Because in a way, you can legislate against coercion in that sense, but what you can't legislate against is people just feeling, well, maybe I should make that decision.
Sort of self-coercion.
Yeah,
guilt, ultimately, it's guilt.
Yes, because I mean, you hear a lot of older people, and I'm sure people who are terminally ill in this sort of category, who would say, I want to go now before I waste all of my money that I want to leave to my children, before all of that is spent, and frankly, I am in pain, and I want to go now, feeling that they would be wrong to continue to go on.
Yeah, and it's a valid point. I mean, if you look at care costs for, say, a 6-month period, they can range between £25,000 and £50,000, money that you could otherwise pass on in form of inheritance to your children. And this is something that MPs are going to have to grapple with. But ultimately, yesterday, the argument was successfully made, and we thought that this was going to happen, that persuaded enough MPs by 330 to 275 to support the legislation. I think it's going to be very difficult when the bill goes into committee and ultimately to the House of Lords for there to be any attempt to block it or prevent it from becoming law. I think the question now is what changes can be made, what safeguards can be put in place to ensure that only those individuals who have 6 months to live, and of course you cannot give, you know, a doctor cannot give a definitive opinion, and that's another concern, because you have cases, don't you, where doctors have given opinions where it's 6 months to live and then somebody's ended up living for 5 or 6 years afterwards, and that's another concern.
And actually one of our viewers wrote in with a thought, how does this affect life insurance? For that very same reason.
Well,
will there be a clause saying, but if you choose assisted dying, you know, this is negated?
Yeah, you would think that insurance companies, large insurance companies, will be part of that conversation as well, and that they will have to bring in the necessary changes to their policies to ensure that they're not, you know, to protect themselves from payouts where somebody's chosen to end their own life.
The problem is that there are ways round some of this stuff. I mean, as you said, one of those internal pressures will be, well, do I spend my money now on the last 6 months of my life, or do I leave it to the children and grandchildren? Well, part of negating that is to say, well, in terms of palliative care, in terms of end-of-life care, if you're given 6 months to live, it will be funded by the NHS. But of course, that's very unlikely to happen.
And that's a real concern. Is actually, and this was an argument put forward by the likes of Diane Abbott, a left-wing Labour MP, that actually, and Dame Meg Hilliard made this point, actually the focus should be on developing and improving palliative care so that people don't have to suffer in agonising pain as they reach the final stages of their life. And, you know, there will be, you know, Wes Streeting has talked about necessarily the cost pressures of implementing this policy, but I think there are also concerns that the NHS might find themselves in a situation where actually, you know, dare I say it, when they look at the cost of providing really good palliative care that can alleviate pain so that people don't have to die, they die naturally as they otherwise would, but they don't have to die in absolute agony in front of their children or loved ones, that actually it's cheaper to say, well, let's give you the option, without having to spend all of that money on palliative care, let's give you the option to end your life much sooner. And these are really fundamental, difficult questions that are going to have to be grappled with over the next few weeks and months in order to make sure that when this legislation comes out the other side and it passes into law, that it has the necessary safeguards.
But I wonder then, does it mean... I know you're saying it's very likely that it will pass into law. However, there will be people, and I'm in that sort of position myself if I had a vote, where you sort of think, well, yes, I'm sort of in favour in principle, but when it comes to looking at this nitty-gritty stuff, I just don't know if in all good conscience you can sort of do it. I mean, I'm really torn.
And I think there are a number of charities and those who work in the palliative care sector who have real concerns about it, and hospices as well. What will it mean for the work that they do, the really important work that they do supporting families, if actually hospices we find, we discover in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, that actually when this legislation comes into force, that there isn't necessarily need for, hospices on the same number or scale that we had previously. And I think there are also concerns about, the models in Canada, and this was talked about a huge amount yesterday. The models in Canada and also in the Netherlands, where actually it's expanded out. So you don't, because this legislation could be amended the other way. So whilst we could be talking about increased safeguards, we could see moves from MPs to actually say we should expand it. So it doesn't necessarily have to include individuals who are terminally ill, but it's actually people who are suffering from long-term conditions that might not necessarily bring an end to their life within 6 months, but actually they want a way out.
Just briefly, in terms of that, is it easier to extend it in either direction, actually, if that legislation is already in place, rather than to bring it in from scratch?
You still need a majority in the House of Commons. And even if you wanted to amend it, I think one thing is true to say, Stephen, from what you've said, we've crossed the Rubicon.
Yes.
This is the moment where we are going to legalise assisted dying, and then every step that we take from there in terms of expanding its scope is a much smaller step than the one we are taking right now in terms of legalising assisted dying. That is true to say. But in terms of, changes to the law, the legislation is clear. It would require a change in primary legislation to the law to expand the scope, and that would, of course, require a majority in the House of Commons.
Well, that's at least some benefit to that it couldn't just all be tweaked willy-nilly in the years to come. Theo, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
OK, it's 12 minutes past 9. Now, in an interview last night, President Zelensky suggested that he is prepared to end the war, but in return for NATO membership, even if Russia doesn't immediately return seized land.
Well, that proposal would signal an end to Ukraine's attempts to win back by force those territories that have so far been seized by Moscow.
Earlier, we spoke to former British Army spokesperson Major Mike Shearer.
Yeah, I must admit, I was shocked to hear this morning, but I suspect that he is taking a much more strategic view of how this war may end going forward. It's much easier to give a definitive when it's not. So he can say yes right now, join NATO, play the long game, and then see what happens within the fullness of time. I think he's just taking a fairly pragmatic and strategic view of how it may well pan out. You give it a little bit away today and you take a lot back tomorrow. The honest truth is, who knows? But I suspect that what you've just intimated there is right. He's given them he's given the dog a bone, if you like, to see how we can stop it as it is, knowing fine well that if he gets himself into the NATO club, that and there's insurrection coming from within to Russia, that they may well be able to claw it back at a later time. From where I'm sat, I could argue that you do not wish to reward failure. And you would be rewarding failure if you were to say, OK, you can have the Donbass if you want, you can have the Crimea if you want, and we'll leave it there. The problem is that no one ever speaks about is that any NATO country can veto the joining of any other country.
And the interesting point as well that President Zelensky made last night in the interview is that he, as president, doesn't have the right to just give away parts of the country.
No, that's a very good point.
Yeah, so it's all got to be, I don't know, it's got to be decided somehow through negotiation. But he said he doesn't hold the right to just give away parts of Ukraine.
No, but the other issue is if it did come to this, stopped the war, but they fall under the NATO umbrella, well, that's a provocation to Russia, isn't it?
It surely is.
I mean, because the last thing they want they don't want NATO on the doorstep, and it would be another step closer, wouldn't it? Another former part of the USSR getting NATO membership, which they would not want. anyway, we'll have to see. Trump is going to be a key player in all of this.
I think so.
Absolutely no doubt about it.
Very interesting world we're living in at the moment, isn't it? Shall we have a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning?
Well, rescue animals from Battersea Dogs and Cats Home have taken part in a festive photo shoot.
Look!
At the King and Queen's country estate, Highgrove. The dogs are all looking for new homes this Christmas, and they posed on a new range of bespoke footstools, crafted and upholstered using recycled curtains from Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. They were made by students and community groups working with the King's Foundation.
Oh, we're seeing a wonderful picture there of a little pooch looking resplendent, actually really, really cute, in Highgrove on one of those posh stools. Right, let's move on. A memorial service is going to be held today at St Edinburgh's St Giles Cathedral for the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond. Held on St Andrew's Day, of course, today the service is going to be streamed live from 11 o'clock this morning. He died, aged 69, of a heart attack whilst he was attending a conference in North Macedonia on the 12th of October.
We've been given a first glimpse inside Notre Dame following its restoration after being partly destroyed in a fire 5 years ago. President Macron hailed the reopening as a shock of hope as he toured the building yesterday. And just to tell you, it is resplendent. It looks like it is brand new. Absolutely stunning. I never thought I'd want somebody's old curtains.
Oh, curtains can be wonderful bits of material, though. Anyone who watched The Sound of Music would know that.
Oh, really? But no, I definitely want some Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle curtains.
They would sell, wouldn't they?
A footstool.
Wouldn't they? But those dogs were taken from Battersea.
Battersea, yeah.
They were driven all the way to Highgrove for that photo shoot. And they are looking for homes. And they look wonderful.
It's fabulous, that. What a really, really clever idea someone's had to come up with that.
Well, of course, the Queen just recently lost her favourite dog.
Yes, she did. She did.
And I think she's looking for another. They'll probably adopt them all. They'll all do what we would all do, fall in love with all of them.
Yes, because they don't have to clear up after them.
They probably don't.
They have people do that with the plastic bags.
Do you think?
Yes.
They must have. The Queen did, didn't she, the former Queen?
She had someone who followed around with,
yes,
with the
apparently,
bags?
yes. Somebody who, I think it was David Attenborough or something, who went walking with her around the grounds of Buckingham Palace. And he was actually asked afterwards, you took the dogs with you? And he said, yeah. And he said, did you have to stop like the rest of us do and pick up? And he said, no, I think the Queen has somebody who does that for her.
Oh, that's what you need.
That is when you are,
That'd be nice.
You're very big and important, isn't it? When you've got a man who will do that.
We can but dream. Right, so we have a look at the weather?
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking for a picture of those pooches, but I'll find it in a minute.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times, but it is going to feel a lot milder, particularly compared to the chilly week that we've had. So quite a cloudy and grey start across much of the country, and it's probably going to be sticking like that through much of the day. The best of the sunshine just to the northeast of any hills, perhaps across Scotland or northern England. We're also going to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, this mainly across western areas, perhaps lingering across northern parts of Scotland too. And it's going to be quite blustery at times around coasts. But for many of us, a mild day on offer, highs of around 13 or 14 Celsius. So to finish the day on Saturday, we're going to continue to see fairly similar conditions. Still plenty of cloud across Scotland, perhaps some longer spells of rain across the Northern Isles, and still drips and jabs of rain and drizzle around hilly areas, still quite blustery around coasts too. Fairly cloudy across Northern Ireland with some longer spells of rain, this heavy at times just starting to creep into the west, and plenty of rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, southwest England. Driest of the weather across central and southeastern England, but still plenty of cloud here. And then through the course of the night, we'll see those longer spells of rain slowly creep their way eastwards across the country. This is going to be turning heavy at times, particularly to start off Sunday morning, and particularly in the west, and then moving across parts of Scotland with plenty of blustery showers behind. Once again, the driest of the weather across the very far southeast. And it's a very mild night on offer too. Some places not really dropping temperatures too much compared to what they were in the day. Now through into Sunday, once again, we'll continue to see that rain sweeping its way eastward. It's most most likely that most of us will see some rain at some point on Sunday, and plenty of blustery showers across the far northwest of the country too, and still fairly breezy around coastal areas. But on the whole, it's going to be another mild day on offer, highs once again around 13 to 14 degrees. That's it from me then. Bye-bye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
21 minutes past 9. Time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway. It's your chance to win 50 grand this time. 50 grand in tax-free cash. And that's the biggest we've ever given away, actually. Here's how to take part.
It's the big.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Bansky's Girl with Balloon is arguably one of the artist's most recognisable images. So when a limited edition print signed by the artist was stolen from Grove Gallery in London, an investigation was launched by the Metropolitan Police's Flying Squad. The work was thankfully retrieved. The desire to own great works of art has once again become evident this week, albeit a little further afield on the continent. Police in Italy have uncovered a criminal network forging artworks by Bansky, Andy Warhol, Pablo Picasso and others. Investigators said that they've seized more than 2,100 fake pieces of art with a potential market value of about £165 million. With me to discuss that case is the Chief Executive of Grove Gallery, James Ryan.
The art world needs to tighten up. It is known as a bit of a Wild West out there because people will try and chance it with these forgeries. You're quite right, there's only one actual original, but even auction houses have been hoodwinked before.
The burglary that you suffered is sub judice, so we have to be careful what we say about it. But it must have been a bit of a shock to you. I mean, was it a broken window, a smashed door?
At 10, 11 o'clock at night and just hammer straight through, shoulder barging through the door and then in and out. You know, gone in 60 seconds. I must say, I know...
Obviously, that targeted attack. The person would have known what he or she was after. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I must say, I know they cop a lot of flack, the police force, but the Flying Squad got the artwork back within 3 days. They were fantastic. So yeah, I've never heard or seen, other than the Thomas Crown Affair type film, I just didn't think it'd be happening to little old me, in Fitzrovia, but it did, and thankfully we got it back.
GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
9:26. Now, today marks what would have been Sir Winston Churchill's 150th birthday.
He was born in 1874. The wartime Prime Minister, of course, led our country through some of the darkest hours. Our reporter, Will Hollis, has been looking back at the life of the man most people often agree is the greatest ever Briton. We'll have a look at his report in a minute. But joining us now, yes, is Winston Churchill lookalike, Derek Herbert. Oh, and a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Stephen and Anne. Wonderful to be on your GB News. We, Clemmy and I, are great. We watch this programme, and you are wonderful because you do speak out. You're not afraid to speak out. And we're great admirers of Nigel Farage. One man who seems to speak out.
Yeah, well,
he'd be very thrilled to hear that.
He would be thrilled to hear that. What is it that makes Winston so remarkable? I mean, is it partly that he was someone who, amongst other things, was such a wonderful leader? I mean, an inspirational leader to the nation.
Well, all I can say is, without Winston Churchill, we wouldn't be here. I mean, he quite rightly deserves the greatest Briton of all time. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. There was nobody else about. They were about to do a deal with Hitler, and he forbade it. And here we are. And without him, we wouldn't be here.
Of course.
It's 150 years since I was born, and it only seems like yesterday. But it's all the whiskey and champagne that's kept me going, and my wonderful cigars.
When you turn up to various events, and I'm sure you're very popular wherever you go, but is it a certain generation of people who admire you most, or do the young people really understand?
Young people. We attend 1940s events. I've been on TV and a few dramas, and we attend corporate work in London. And it's very important that people still realise the Churchill's the greatest Briton, and I think that it's very, very popular. It's very popular today. Everywhere you go, address of the character, people want photographs. My wife joins me as Clementine. We're known as the Churchills, and I give life talks on his life, and I also deliver speeches. Would you like a couple of lines?
Yes, we would. Absolutely, we would love a couple of lines.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. It's interesting, though, isn't it, that at the time he was delivering some of these key speeches, we know now from reports from the time that actually he had his doubts as to whether Britain would succeed. And that, I think that's fascinating, that he had to be someone who could lead from the front and trying to protect the nation from some of the doubts he had himself.
Well, he did have his black dog days, they called it, but he had to keep cheerful, and he surrounded himself with positive people. And action this day was his motto, and that's what's lacking today. We have snowflakes in our parliament, and we need leadership, good leadership. Action this day. This country is a great country, and we need to keep it great. Fight for our freedom and democracy, which is being trashed today.
It's interesting. I mean, you must talk about this. I mean, Stephen said there that he himself had his doubts, but he also had doubters. There were a lot of people, even at the time, who were very critical of him, who didn't want him to take on the leadership of the country during war. They wanted somebody else. They took a lot of convincing. What do you think gave him the self-belief to actually carry on and be as strong as he was?
When he was a little boy playing with toy soldiers, he said to a friend, "One day I'm going to lead this country."
Really good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Would you like me to appear a few more times on your programme? I will keep positivity.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we need a bit of that. We need a bit of that. Thank you very much.
We'll have you back in 5 minutes, Derek. Thanks very much indeed.
Brilliant.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care yourself, yes. I think that's wonderful. I've seen, well, we've both seen, haven't we? People who impersonate Winston Churchill and the effect it has on people.
It is remarkable, actually, because you do get I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you get a sense of what it must have been like to interact with someone like Winston Churchill. So keep going about. I heard a programme about him yesterday, and it was talking a lot about his flaws, but the whole point of it was saying, but it's the flaws that make you.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be a three-dimensional character. It's the flaws that make you, and it's how you deal with that, and how you come forward, and how you come through it, and that's what made
Actually,
it.
we British love an underdog, don't we? And for so many years he was an underdog and then came through at the right time.
He warned about the German air threat,
yes,
didn't he? And people ignored him.
He said they are building airplanes, which they were not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And he said they're pretending they're one thing, but they're actually another. And he was howled down in derision in the House of Commons when he was making many of those speeches.
But he just kept going.
Yeah.
Kept going.
You
Of
have
course,
to
proved to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, remarkable man, but was he our greatest Briton? It's our poll of the day so far. This is what you've said. 95% of you say he was the greatest Briton. 5 don't. Well, it's not to deride those 5%, because there are lots of other people who could push a very close second. In fact, someone said, it's a Thingy Fleming, Alexander Fleming, came through on one of the views a minute ago, who discovered penicillin, but which was literally 2 minutes away.
Literally a lifesaver.
Oh, yeah. But the room it was discovered in is just round the corner.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a plaque on the wall.
Oh, no, that's
so
brilliant.
it's literally just round the corner from where we sit now, and I'm always stunned every time I walk past it, because it's just like,
You think, wow.
what a thing
Yeah.
that's saved, countless lives.
I think that's something that we can all be so proud of, is there have been a great many great Britons. I think, and even when people argue it, they still come out with Winston Churchill at the top. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, let us know what you think.
Yeah, we'll have the final result for you in Nana's show later. You can scan the QR code if you're watching on TV to take part, or if you're on the radio right now, good morning to you, go to gbnews.com/poll.
Still to come, the Coral Winter Festival is taking place at Newbury Racecourse today, so we'll be having a look. That's next.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is Miss Universe fans hailing the end of wokeness and crediting the Trump effect after a biological woman, there's still some of them around apparently, has won the 2024 crown. She's Miss Denmark, because obviously the last decade, it's just been a beast transgender smurfs from Papua New Guinea. They're the only people allowed to win any beauty contest, you know what I mean? You're not allowed to have any.
There's some of the trans women have won these. You definitely wouldn't say no.
No,
They look amazing.
I've seen but I've seen some of them that didn't, and some that were clearly just there out of
Have there been more than one trans woman who's won Miss? I didn't realise this. Okay,
I've got a chart at home. This one isn't trans. Victoria Kjær Thielvig, 21 of Denmark. Everything about that description says attractive.
Nazis. Okay, I have seen pictures of her. She is very attractive.
Yes.
She is.
Yes.
I don't know exactly how to put it, but she is kind of not retro or vintage or so. She's quite an old-fashioned notion of beauty, just absolutely ice blue eyes. Absolutely extraordinary, clear skin and gorgeous blonde hair. I mean, it's absolutely kind of mid-70s.
Apparently, the sanity's returned to the beauty pageant industry, so they can get back to sexualising 4-year-olds and promoting anorexia like they used to. So
there is that.
She will earn an estimated $250,000 annual salary working full-time as Miss Universe, and will live in a luxurious New York City apartment as she carries out her duties, which involve glass coffee tables and rich Saudi businessmen.
Glass coffee tables. And visiting other planets and solar systems and constellations, I would imagine, in Miss Universe.
Being concerned about animals.
Yes, absolutely, and wanting to bring about world peace. I miss those days.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
9:37 now. The Coral Winter Festival is taking place at Newbury Racecourse today.
The festival is set to feature one of the country's most prestigious jump races in the racing calendar, the Coral Gold Cup.
Well, Jack Carson is there for us this morning. Hi, Jack.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Just under, we've been told, 12,000 people expected here today to watch that, feature race. It's race 6 in the list today. That feature race at about 3 o'clock, the Gold Cup race. It's one of the premier jump races. And who better to talk to get a bit of an idea of just how much today means than Philip Davies, of course, friend of the channel and also one of the board members on the Racehorse Owners Association. Just tell us a little bit about, what today is all about and how big of a race this is in the calendar every year.
Yeah, Jack, this is one of the big meetings of the year. Every owner wants to win the Coral Gold Cup. People of my vintage still remember it as the Hennessy Gold Cup. It's been won by greats through the years, Gold Cup winners like Denman, Borough Hill Lad, Brigorn, back in the day Arkle and Millhouse have all won this race. It's one of the big races of the jump season. Everybody wants to win it, and that's why the stands will be packed later on today.
It's got quite a history. I mean, it's run here since 1960. It started at Cheltenham, but it's run here since 1960. So there's a big history of this race here.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of the big trial races for the Cheltenham Gold Cup later in the season. Lots of horses have started out here and won the Cheltenham Gold Cup, and there'll be no doubt some people running their horses today who are hoping that their horse will win a Cheltenham Gold Cup one day as well.
I mean, you've got a big history with horse racing. You're a huge fan of this. I mean, from your experience. Who are the runners and rider? Who are the kind of the trainers in form that that could well or maybe even surprise us today?
Well, in terms of trainers in form, the favourite, been very well backed in recent times, is somebody called Broadway Boy, trained by Nigel Twiston Davis. His stable's been on fire since the start of the season. It's a very highly regarded horse, and that horse has been particularly well backed in the last few days. But there's one lurking near the bottom, Jack, called Victorino, trained by Venetia Williams. Venetia Williams is absolutely winning everything at the moment. She won the big race of the day last week at Haydock Park, the Betfair Chase with Royal Pagaille. Her horses are absolutely on fire at the moment, and I think Victorino near the bottom is one that people should keep an eye out for today. I think it's been targeted at this particular race. One thing I will say, and I can say to viewers with confidence, is don't back Iron Bridge, because that's a non-runner.
Okay, well there you go. Well, that's a pretty confident prediction there. Tell us about what some of the actual race is going to be like. It's just over 3 miles long, so just kind of give us an indication of of what the horses are going to go through. As they're put through their paces today. Yeah, it's a long distance chase, so it's going to be quite attritional. You need a horse that's going to stay really well. There's 4 fences up the straight. It's a very long straight here at Newbury, and a lot can change from when horses enter the straight to the winning post. So jockeys will be biding the time, because it's going to take a lot of getting today. So you've got a lot of experience as well. So what do you kind of look at at a horse as they're paraded round beforehand? Yeah, you really want to look. I mean, you look at a horse that walk well, that their feet walk over the back feet walks over where the front feet was. You want a horse that walks well. You don't really want it walking like Charlie Chaplin. If they walk well, they tend to run well. But you look to really, the thing is that the horses are fit. You want the horse over 3 miles in softish ground. You want the horse to be fit, and so you want to see the ribs, and you don't want to see any excess weight or anything like that with the horse when they're walking around the parade ring. But today at Newbury we will see some of the creme de la creme of jump racing, not just in the big race of the day, the Coral Gold Cup, but also in the other races as well. Philip, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I think you get really much of a better preview for what we're expecting here today a little bit later on at Newbury.
Lovely stuff, Jack. Make sure you get a good tip from Philip and who to put your money on today, because he really does know his horses, does our Phil.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, oh yeah, he does. He does. If you ever want to place a bet on anything,
He knows.
ring Phil first.
Oh.
It's not always right, but he's often right.
Oh, good. Good.
There you know.
Right, did you also know it's St Andrew's Day today? Our reporter, Tony Maguire, is in St Andrews, where celebrations are taking place, so we'll go and visit there next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Serving some of the most talked about food in Chelsea, executive head chef of Number 50 Cheney, Ian Smith, has created a range of menus with a hint of the homeland, using the finest British ingredients sourced by trusted suppliers. Ian Smith was head chef at Jason Atherton's Social Eating House and spent time in the kitchens of the Galvin brothers. Ian joins me now to tell more of the story. Tell me about Number 50 Cheney.
Yes, so we are a beautiful restaurant down in a corner of Chelsea on the Embankment with an amazing team. And we really pride ourselves on, being an affordable luxury that people, really are wanting to return to week in, week out.
What's the view from your restaurant?
Well, you can see the Embankment, the Thames, and Albert Bridge, which is very nice.
Very nice.
Actually lit up. Very romantic.
And tell me a little bit about your philosophy. I was talking there about having a touch of the homeland, British food, seasonal food.
Yes. Yeah, I think, for me, great cooking is, with simplicity on finest ingredients, cooked with simplicity, and ultimately, there to be enjoyed through... Yeah, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, it starts as a young person's business. You went into it very young, didn't you? 15?
Yes. Yeah, so I was 15. I sat in my parents' bedroom, called the Ritz, the Dorchester and Claridge's, and very luckily, a man on the end of the phone, 21 years ago, sent me on to a college course called the Specialised Chef Scholarship. 3 days later, I had a Ritz stamp letter through the post, and off me and my parents went, and luckily I got on the course.
And how old were you when you got your first responsibility, would you say?
I think the biggest responsibility in my career is today. Leading Number 50 Cheney.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Because it's Black Friday weekend, as they call it.
Yes.
I was just looking, and I know you've been as bad.
Yeah, I have.
I was just looking at my computer here, and I've got a screen up for some earbud things, which I really fancy, but I never use, so it'd be a total waste of money.
It would, and an expensive waste of money.
I've got one page open on vacuum cleaners, and which we don't need a vacuum cleaner. And I've got another page open on underpants.
Yes. Well, you've been talking underpants since 6 o'clock this morning.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. And I do think there's some very nice Christmas ones. I always think Christmas is a very good time to give a man underpants.
Oh, yeah. Oh, underpants and socks and handkerchiefs.
Yes.
I always get a packet of hankies at Christmas.
Absolutely. They're very good stocking fillers.
Oh, yeah.
We find, yeah.
Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with that. So anyway, that's what we've been doing in the breaks. I haven't actually bought any of it.
No, just looking.
Just looking.
Yeah.
Whetting my appetite for later.
Yeah. It's terrible, isn't it, the way Christmas can turn into a bit of a consumer fest if you're not careful. Yeah. You have to keep reminding yourself that it's a very important time of the year. And talking of important days as well, it's Happy St Andrew's Day today.
Yes, the annual celebration of the patron saint of Scotland.
And what better place to celebrate than in St Andrews.
Yeah,
so we'll go now to GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire, who is in St Andrews. And don't you look fabulous?
Hello, good morning. We are, of course, here in St Andrews, and thank you. This is, you know, our National Patron Saints Day, and what better place, as you say, to be in St Andrews, a day where I get to turn my accent up to 11, and you can all scramble around for the controller to turn the subtitles on. But nevertheless, before the big celebrations start today, it is the Big Hoolie here in St Andrews. We've got pipe bands, we've got a big market, we've got community events, and then the fireworks. So before we dig into all that, we're going to just take a moment to reflect on St Andrew himself, the patron saint of this country. And to do that, I'm joined by Reverend Canon Alistair Coles. Hello, good morning. We are in this lovely part of Scotland, and tell us about St Andrew. Who was he?
St Andrew in the Gospels is disciples. He's named as one of the 12, the brother of Simon Peter. He's often in the shadow because he's introduced often as Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter. But in St John's Gospel, he is the first called, and our Eastern Orthodox brothers and sisters refer to him as the first called because he's the first one to follow Jesus.
And tell me then, you know, in terms of, you know, he never actually set foot here in Scotland, did he?
No, he didn't set foot here. There are various relics which did find their way here, and there are legends, according to whichever one you choose to follow, about how that happened. But among the relics, there is no foot, so he never set foot here. There's a shoulder blade in Edinburgh, and there are various other things here in medieval times, but they've long been lost, and among them was no foot.
But, okay, so... But of course, he never even obviously had come to Scotland. He was a fisherman in Galilee. So tell us, how did he become Scotland's patron saint then?
Well, there is a tradition surrounding the Battle of Athelstane Bridge in East Lothian. This is the 800s, that King Angus II had a vision of a saltire in the clouds, and he interpreted this as a promise from St Andrew that he would win a battle that he was expecting to lose. But it's a legend. Another legend is that a monk who was charged with looking after the relics of St Andrew in Patras in Greece, which is probably where he met his end, on a saltire, because he didn't feel it was appropriate to die on the same method, with the same method as his master, Jesus. He didn't feel that was right because he was a humble person. But this monk had a vision that the relics needed to be taken to the end of the world. And he brought some of the relics that he was charged with caring for here, and was shipwrecked, perhaps just down there. And that is another account of how the bones, some of the bones of St Andrew, ended up here, dated perhaps in the 4th century.
And of course, he was also made patron saint of Scotland here, and the signing of the Declaration of Arbroath. That was when Scotland declared its independence. So there you go, a little bit of a background around the man himself, St Andrew. Please stay with us through today. Make me wearing this kilt in this winter weather totally worth it, and we'll be covering the Big Hoolie as the day progresses.
I think it's absolutely wonderful that you're really in the spirit of it, and that you embrace everything that is Scottish, because why not? There's an awful lot to celebrate. Thank you very much.
Well, I must say the scenery looks fabulous behind you anyway, doesn't it?
It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning. Oddly enough, I was just Googling St Andrews just as that was on, and the shot that comes up is exactly the same position where they're stood now.
Oh, well, it's
exactly, and it's that old, those old ruins that, I don't know how old they are, but absolutely, I mean, beautiful. I love Scotland. Absolutely love Scotland.
Do you get Discovery Plus?
No.
Maybe you should, because Meet the Rees-Moggs has started.
Oh.
It's the reality show that goes into the home of Jacob Rees-Mogg and his family, and apparently it's really good.
Is it? I don't know.
It's a glimpse into another world.
I don't know if I've ever met Jacob. We're not sort of around at the same time, are we? I don't know. I feel like I'd need to bow and walk backwards.
Oh, absolutely, and I think people do.
Yes.
He has a butler. They have a staff who cluck around everybody, and a nanny who brought him up, as well as now bringing up his children.
Oh, right.
Helping to. I mean, not bringing them up, they're helping to. And apparently it is a glimpse into another world, and it's being reviewed because it's on Discovery Plus, and you have to have that at the moment. But the journalists who've seen it say it's really, really compelling.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what will be compelling is Saturday Morning Live. You know they're here because they've been gossiping on the microphone. Ellie Costello and Sam Francis, good morning.
Good morning.
Microphone etiquette.
Yeah, we're already being told off for talking too much, sorry.
Yes, that's a sign of things to come.
Well, we're excited because we've got a great show coming up.
What have you got?
Jam-packed.
Packed. Consumer expert coming on to talk about the blues post-Black Friday, which is going to be very interesting.
Oh, you mean withdrawal symptoms?
Well, exactly. Ahead of... We've got Cyber Monday coming up as well.
It's not over, Anne.
I haven't bought my Hoover yet.
There's more fun to come.
Does Cyber Monday still exist? Because all the Black Friday's done cyber
It's
now
the
anyway.
whole weekend now.
So we also want to know whether any
Look,
misleading...
you can tell Ellie's really into it. What have you bought?
What haven't I bought, Anne? I can't say too much because lots of presents for other people.
Oh, I see.
But I've been busy.
Oh, I'll bet.
And I have some regrets.
Ready? 24 hours in.
I know. I don't
Returns? Lots of returns?
I think there could be some returns on the cards, yes. I got a bit excitable.
Well, it is very exciting. I got excited about a Hoover.
Well, they tell
this
you that
morning.
you feel like you've got no time and you just need to buy it right there, right then.
But then it comes around to Boxing Day and you think it's even cheaper then. If only you'd waited.
That
There's
is-
always a better sale coming.
Yeah, January are the best sales of the year, apparently.
Still?
The cheapest
I'm
place,
surprised.
the cheapest time to get your presents is
Yes,
still
but
January.
you need them for the day before, don't you? The whole
Very true. Or by the year before if you're super organised would be very
Who's doing that?
I know. We're also meeting a child genius. So his name is Krish. Is he 12?
10.
10.
10 years old.
And he scored 162 in the Mensa test, so that is the highest possible score.
Wow.
Oh,
he
really?
is just a whiz kid at everything. I was like, is it maths that he's good at? No, everything.
But he can also play the piano like a maestro.
Also play the
I think the average score is 100. So if we're to be tested...
Have you not done it? Have you not done the Mensa
No, but
test?
we have been practising a few Mensa questions.
They're very hard. We're going to test you as well throughout the show. We're going to put the questions up and see if you get it. I did put it on my Instagram story, actually, and people are getting it, getting the Mensa questions. So we've obviously got very intelligent...
So basically, everyone watching
viewers.
is very clever and we're just a bit thick.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think that's what we can take
That
from
doesn't
this.
surprise me.
So we're going to be talking to Krish, and we're also we're going to be talking about Christmas decorations and how to feng shui your home.
Feng shui, as in... we're trying to figure it out ourselves, but balance, I suppose, is the best way to put it.
So as it was always known up north, feng shui.
Just feng shui, I think.
Feng shui.
Do you have green or red decorations on your tree? Either of you?
Red.
That's very good for feng shui.
Red and gold we've got.
All the gold
Gold's
pushing
bad.
it. No.
Anne?
It's my first Christmas without a tree.
You're not doing a tree?
No, I'm not doing
Well,
it.
your feng's well and truly
Yeah, well,
swayed.
swayed, I'm swayed.
Right, we'll see you in a few minutes. That's it from us. See you tomorrow.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a cloudy weekend ahead with some rain and drizzle at times, but it is going to feel a lot milder, particularly compared to the chilly week that we've had. So quite a cloudy and grey start across much of the country, and it's probably going to be sticking like that through much of the day. The best of the sunshine just to the northeast of any hills, perhaps across Scotland or northern England. We're also going to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, this mainly across western areas, perhaps lingering across northern parts of Scotland too. And it's going to be quite blustery at times around coasts. But for many of us, a mild day on offer, highs of around 13 or 14 Celsius. So to finish the day on Saturday, we're going to continue to see fairly similar conditions. Still plenty of cloud across Scotland, perhaps some longer spells of rain across the Northern Isles, and still drips and drabs of rain and drizzle around hilly areas, still quite blustery around coasts too. Fairly cloudy across Northern Ireland with some longer spells of rain, this heavy at times just starting to creep into the west, and plenty of rain and drizzle across parts of Wales, southwest England. Driest of the weather across central and southeastern England, but still plenty of cloud here. And then through the course of the night, we'll see those longer spells of rain slowly creep their way eastwards across the country. This is going to be turning heavy at times, particularly